taken. However, the committee was updated on Cato Field, and I can report out that the first mediation session will be happening this Thursday. So things are moving. And I'm hoping from here on in, we're going to start getting more progress to be able to report out to you. Okay. One thing that, there were no, issues approved, but we did approve the executive session minutes. So that's all that we can really report out on executive session. I know that.
Did you want me to make a motion?
Yeah, I just wanted to make an announcement why I'm doing it. So on the agenda tonight, we had put on there, a discussion action vote for the wells to be inspected, for, Rockland Oaks, potential to be able to use our water here to support them. So we have representatives from the health department as well as the chairman of the commission of Rockland Oaks with us tonight. And so I would like to have a motion to move this agenda item from new business up to this first item.
I'd like to make a motion to move item F, new business 3, discussion action vote request for Situate Housing Authority for the town to provide authorization to the Rhode Island Department of Health to do an assessment of the wells and services of the Situate High School to determine if they can provide adequate water for the Rockland Oaks community to the next item.
Okay.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so I guess we'll hear from the chairman, Chucky Collins. And maybe you can put a little frame around this. This is the first time where, we've heard bits and pieces, Chuck, but we really haven't had someone to really come to the committee and explain what the goal is and possibly how it's going to implicate our schools.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. And thank the school committee for moving us up. What we're looking to do is we're looking to get water, hopefully from here, transported by pipe down to Rockland Oaks. Because we have a decent quality of water down there, but it's the quantity of water. We don't have enough. We have the health department involved. We also have Northeast Engineering. They're here too. Their representative, Bob Ferrari. And which if you have any questions after, he can speak to it. It took time because I was told by a few people that I had to go to the council to get authorization to do this. I had to go to the school committee to get it. I talked to the town solicitor and they said, go to the town council first and have them approve it and then go to you people to have you approve it. What we're looking to do is at this point, we're looking to get an inspection of your wells and then we're looking to get a pump test to see if your two wells you have put out the capacity to assist us too. We're not getting authorization at this point to go on. If they do pass, we have to come back to you. I just want to make that clear. So it's totally up to you people in the end, like that, whether we can proceed forward. And that's what we're looking to do. I talked to Bob about it. Also, we're looking that you have 2 wells. Your third well doesn't, they took it offline. We're looking also maybe hopefully in the future that we can get a third well that we can put in too. This is going to be done, it's the time to be done now because as far as the engineering report and the initial report, the health department and or the state's paying for it. I've been told that from the health department that there's a good possibility, it's not guaranteed, but there's a good possibility that we can get 99% of this or more paid for between the state money that's available and the federal money. So it would help us and it would help you down the road. We would be able to split. Right now, you're paying every month for an inspection, a water test like that. We are too. They're like $2,500 a month, I was told, that we're each paying. So we would be able to, the cost, it would probably save you, I don't know, maybe $10,000 or $15,000 a year. And I know every nickel counts right now. So Bob's here. I'd like to introduce him. If you have any questions, or if you have any questions of me. But that's why, I know, Caroline, you got asked by, the reporter and everything like that, what was going on. I was doing one step at a time, like I was told to do by the solicitor. So that's why I didn't call you up first. I went to the town, I got there okay. I'm coming to you and hopefully I get your okay. And then we can proceed on. Bob?
Chuck,
Yeah.
I think my question would be to you. If not, please guide me to whom I should address it. But in the documents, in my packet that I read, I believe it said that the system would have to be down for 2 to 3 days. And so I'm just wondering when you were going to plan to do that. School will be opening very soon. And if we have to close the system for 2 to 3 days, the impact on, the folks that work here, as we try to get school opened.
Okay,
I'm just
well,
concerned
Can
with the
can I-
timing right now.
May I just follow up with that? I did, the person who's been the point person for the health department, Colleen Newman, she did call me last week and she's on vacation this week. So I do thank you for coming tonight. I addressed that with her. I just wanted to clarify one thing. She said, and maybe you can clarify too, if this is wrong. She said that the schools would need to be closed down, not the schools, the wells would be closed down 2 or 3 days per well. So if we're talking 2 wells to be tested, we're talking 6 days. Does that sound correct?
let's clarify. I talked to Bob a few minutes ago. Bob will explain more to it. But one well will be taken offline. The other well will be online. You'll always have water like that. Bob can correct me but that's the way I took it. So let's let Bob explain it to you guys so you get it from the horse's mouth.
Good evening. I'm Bob Ferrari. I'm president of Northeast Water Solutions. Just for a very quick background, my firm prepared an engineering evaluation of the high school, middle school water system back in 2015 and 2016. We have performed some previous evaluations of the Rockland Oaks facility back in 2018. We were asked to do an updated evaluation of Rockland Oaks just this past spring, which we did. We completed that in April. We initiated this about not quite 2 years ago, probably about a year and a half ago, but we've just completed and submitted to the Department of Health a design for improvements to the high school, middle school campus water supply and treatment system. Okay, so that's in for review now, and at some point it'll be approved. The school is in need of some improvements to their system. Now, where this relationship between the Rockland Oaks facility comes in is that they're they have pretty much a fixed population there. They don't have a particularly large water demand. They average about 1,200 gallons per day. They probably peak at about 1,700 gallons a day. Their problem is technically they got 5 wells on the site. 3 of them are out of service. They were very low capacity and they were choked with iron and manganese and radionuclides. They are living on 2 wells right now, wells 3 and 4. Well 3 is their best yielding well. It has a capacity of about 3 gallons a minute. Well number 4 has just about no capacity. So they're kind of limping along, and they have been for a while. Now, and it's not a criticism of anybody who's been involved. That's just the reality of the bedrock geology and the effective water yield that's in the ground. We did in the evaluation this spring, one of the alternatives, we looked at what could be done to develop new well supplies on that site. While it's possible certainly to do this, at what cost and what would the water quality be? Coming up the hill to the high school, your wells, which are wells 2 and 3, have very high quality water, far better water quality. They have a pretty good effective yield. the issue with the existing wells at the high school here is that they were drilled in 1956, and for all practical purposes, nobody's really taken a look in them in 66 years. And, you know, there's certainly more than adequate capacity to support the operation of the school. So when we made the recommendation to at least consider the alternative of, instead of trying to develop a new supply at Rockland Oaks to supply water from the high school by running a pipeline down to Rockland Oaks, we did capital and operating cost evaluations. And as Chuck said a few minutes ago, there's no question that instead of having two independent public water systems, combining them into a single system, there is considerable annual operating cost savings, probably somewhere between $10,000 and $20,000 a year for, you know, combined for the two systems. And of course, there's a cost share. So in any event, in a memo I sent to the Department of Health recently, which I believe that you may have in your possession and have the opportunity to review, the first step in this process before any decisions can really be made is to conduct an evaluation of the wells 2 and 3 here on the high school campus. And I also reiterate, that has to be done in the summer before school reopens. So we have a very tight window to get this done in. It can be done. And the step would be, we would take down one well at a time. We would extract the pump, the riser pipe and cabling. We would do a camera inspection. It's all recorded. We would examine the well for its physical condition, you know, where the fractures are, the water bearing fractures, etc. Examine the casing, all the components of the well. And then when we were done, we would put everything back in, but we would also affix what they call a stilling tube to the riser pipe. And the purpose of the stilling tube is we can then put a pressure transducer in that well. It's an electronic instrument that will monitor the water level in the well when we're going through a pumping test. And then we would do the work on that well. And frankly, I would want to inspect, you know, the first well, then get that back online. We'd sanitize it, get it back online, and then inspect the second well, and then do the pumping tests. We're prepared to do this, move into this next week. Okay. And because we have to move very quickly, and I've got people on standby if we can do it. The cost for this, and again, I could only give a very general budget, and just because of the time constraints, we probably won't come anywhere close to the budget, but we gave a budget of about $15,000 to $18,000. It's probably going to cost a lot less than that just because of the time constraints. But the cost would be borne entirely by the state of Rhode Island. Other than perhaps someone's time, there's no cost to the town or the school department. This is being done under a contract my firm has with the state of Rhode Island to provide engineering assistance to small systems. So the work would be done before school starts. There would be no loss of service, of water service to the school. And also keep in mind, we would make sure that the existing water storage tanks that are in the mechanical room in the lower area of the school would be completely full of water. They'd be topped off before we start this works, because the last thing we want to do is disrupt school operations as you're now getting ready for the next school year to officially begin. So that's a relatively quick synopsis of what the plan is, to how to do this. And, you know, now once we get done, then we'll have information that would inform subsequent decision making as far as, you know, how viable are the different options and what, you know, what can be done. Okay. Or if it, or also if there are some suggested improvements to the existing wells, either redevelopment, cleaning, whatever, repairs, we'll know that then at that point.
I know at this point, we are not at full capacity in terms of student numbers.
Right.
And we have reports saying that that will change going forward. Has there been any study done on what water needs are in our school when we are at full capacity?
The short answer is yes. We evaluated the school in 2016. We looked at current water use based on school population, and then we extended that to look at maximum school population, students and staff. Okay. Also, one thing else to point out, this is actually the optimum time to be doing a pumping test program to assess effective yield of the wells, because this is the low recharge period. You may have noticed we haven't had a lot of rain lately. We're in a drought. And normally the state of Rhode Island, DEM, who oversees groundwater withdrawals, they want you to do pumping tests in the summer, late summer, early fall season, when it's considered the low flow, low recharge season. So typically that's, August, September, October. It has also included July this year also. So this is the optimum time, but the short answer to the response is yes. And and we would reevaluate that also, because one of the possible outcomes could be that the wells, we have to find out what the effective well yield is. From that, we can then say, well, here's what we have today. Can this support the anticipated maximum, population of the school? And can it support the load from Rockland Oaks? Either that answer is yes, or the answer is no. If the answer is no, it may be, well, what has to be done to redevelop these wells? And as Chuck also said, there's a possibility that we might also recommend development of a new well on the campus here, depending on what we find.
So, right now there are 3 wells there. One's decommissioned.
Yeah, well number 1, all 3 wells were drilled pretty much the same time in 1956.
And I don't know if our director of facilities might want to just come on up in case some of these questions might be more pertain to you, but is it your understanding that the 2 wells, what well is serving what and what well is serving the other, and the other thing is that, and I know it's been a point of contention this week because, we are in a terrible drought. We have significant investments in athletic fields, and we're trying to strike a balance where we're able to maintain and keep the fields from completely, being from losing them, while at the same time trying to be cognizant of what this potentially could mean to people in our surrounding community. But can you explain to me, or do you know what well 2 serves and what well 3 serves and how they work? And I do know that those wells also pull to water a practice field. And that practice field cost us over $150,000. So we're trying we need to be sure that it's not just the drinking, it's all use of the water.
All right, a couple of things. Going back to the original construction of the school, all 3 wells were piped together in the mechanical room. Okay. We're going to call it the mechanical room or the water room. So the feed service from all 3 wells comes in there, and they ultimately get combined together in a pipe manifold. We shut down well number 1. This is several years ago because it had contamination. It was a low level of PFAS contamination. You may have heard of PFAS, and the other wells haven't ever demonstrated any PFAS. We've monitored them. So the recommendation to the district at that time, which was followed, was to take well number 1 offline. So that well is offline and not used. So the other 2 wells, we believe they have an effective yield of something on the order of 20,000 gallons a day. They are combined together. They feed into the water storage tanks in the basement of the school in that mechanical room. And then the water is pumped from those tanks into the school's distribution system. Okay. So this is part of what we want to assess, is reassess what is that effective yield of the wells.
Okay, so you're not sure if we shut 1 down, are you pretty confident that it will be able to maintain the school?
Yeah.
So they can clean the schools and get them open?
Yeah. You're based upon, well, at the time we did the evaluation, and I realized the population may have changed somewhat. The school was using, this is when it was in full operation, was using about 3,600 gallons per day. Okay. So, now that may have gone up. But that's when you've got your complement of staff, administrative teachers and students. So right now in the summer, I suspect you're probably maybe operating at 1,000 or 1,500 gallons a day because, your facility staff is getting the school ready. So they're.
But
probably
we
doing a
are
lot of cleanup.
watering.
Right. So you have irrigation also. So we've got to take a look at that. And we would definitely want to look at that and try
I
to
wanna
coordinate
switch-
that.
I want to move this over to my colleague here, but this week has been a very tough week for many of the people in our community that are surrounding Rockland Oaks and close to by our schools.
Mhm.
And would this, if we were to take, and I have a lot of questions. I know it's 100 degrees in here, but I want to be sure that I understand clearly the
Mhm.
process, because I don't want to make one decision without making sure that nothing's going to affect our students in a negative way.
Mhm.
But if we start drawing more water from those wells for Rockland, will that have any impact on any of the surround, because right now we're watering fields and there's some concerns that because we're using some of this extra water, that some of the houses and families around us their wells are not working well anymore. That's no pun intended, but I wanted to ask you, what would potentially be in a drought like we're having now, we start drawing more and more water, the wells stop pumping more and more, which I think would be even more of a drain than just watering a field 3 times a day. How would that impact the surrounding houses in that area, especially if they live across from Rockland Oaks?
Mhm.
I mean, we know there's not a lot of water in that area.
Right. Well, keep this in mind. I suspect, without necessarily being familiar with all the neighboring wells, I'm familiar with a few of them. Most of the neighboring wells undoubtedly are bedrock wells, as the school's wells are, and for that matter, as Rockland Oaks wells are. So
But can I just have you speak up just a little bit?
Oh,
'Cause
sure,
the
I'm sorry.
fans are like airplanes next
Okay,
to me.
I'm sorry. So the neighboring wells, unless someone wants to advise me differently, are principally drilled bedrock wells, and I'm sure there are varying depths in the ground. The problem in a drought, and there's a lot of reasons why a well can go dry or lose capacity, but its starting point is your groundwater table is going down because you don't have enough recharge, that you would normally have in a non-drought condition. Okay, and that's kind of common sense. Now, the further you are, the further away wells are from each other, the less likely there is to be interconnectivity through the bedrock fractures. Okay. If there's a well where I'm standing and there's a well where you're sitting, it's highly probable they are connected in the ground. If there's a well here and there's another well 500 feet away, it's far less likely. I'm not going to say it's impossible, but it's far less likely. We also have to keep in mind that the bedrock is not absolutely solid material. The bedrock, granitic bedrock, is porous. That's why there's water in fractures and in gaps and voids in the bedrock. And that's what we try to capture with bedrock wells. So increasing pumping on the school site is not necessarily going to add to stress in a bedrock aquifer on wells, 1,000 feet, 2,000 feet, 3,000 feet away. If there was somebody immediately neighboring, it's possible. But keep this in mind. What we're also proposing to do if Rockland Oaks was connected to the school, that would actually be deactivating wells that are in much closer proximity to neighboring residential wells than the wells on the school's property are. Okay, so there's a potential beneficial impact there, or removal of a potential impact.
Colleen?
So
I guess my only question is, so I think, I mean, I can speak on behalf of the committee when I say, I think we all want to do what's in the best interest of helping our neighbors at Rockland Oaks. I think that goes without speaking for anybody. I don't think anyone's opposed to them having, you know, the best possible water quality they can. My question is, and I think the only question that really bears at this point in time, we want to do a test. That's all we're asking for right now is a test.
That's
Can
correct.
we do this test? So once we do this test, we're going to have a whole lot more information. And that's when we need to ask a whole lot of questions. Can our schools sustain this? So the only question I think is pertinent right now is this pumping that so can the school sustain it by able to operate on the one well, like you said? And will this pumping or whatever it is that you have to do to test the water flow, I don't know if I'm using the right terms, adversely impact the neighbors during this period of 6 days? And if the answer to both, if we can sustain the school and it's not going to adversely impact the neighbors, the state of Rhode Island is paying for this. So then we'll know better how to proceed forward, correct? So I don't know that it's kind of a no-brainer, in my opinion, if the answer to those two questions are, yes, we can continue to get our schools ready and it's not going to drain anyone's surrounding well.
Yeah, well, and just if I may build off what you just said, you're absolutely correct. The proposal effectively in front of you right now is to simply run tests. Part of the purpose of the tests is to ascertain if there's a potential adverse impact on the neighbors, okay? And it's also to get answers as far as what's the current physical and operational and capacity status of the existing wells. Any other discussion we have is purely theoretical.
My direct question is, and I know we don't know that exact value until you do this specific test, but does doing this test, is there a risk that our neighbors are going to run out of water while you're running this test?
No,
Okay,
that's not going to happen. That is definitely not going to happen.
The questions. And if Jason says that we can continue our operations of our school and getting things ready, and we're not going to drain anyone's well, why wouldn't we do this test?
I will make a further suggestion here, and I'd be glad to do it. If there is, a neighbor or neighbors who are concerned, and it's a legitimate concern, I'm sure they are. I can't, I will be more than happy to put a transducer in their wells on their property, and then we can monitor their wells while we're doing our pumping and see if there's any impact.
I would like to be sure that they have an opportunity to take advantage of that. But I want to ask about one more risk. And you agree. I'll save my 1,000 questions until after. It's too hot. But in addition to the risk to our neighbors, is there any risk to the existing wells? I mean, they're old. Is it possible that they could, become inoperable? And other thing is, will you fix anything that you find that needs to be repaired? Will you fix it for free if we let you do the testing?
Number one, the reason we do the inspection first is to find out if there's a problem. Okay, that would either compromise the well or potentially invalidate any potential pump test or run a risk. That's why we do the inspection first. Now I can tell you this, I've never had a pump. I've done hundreds and hundreds. I lost count of how many pumping tests I've ever done. It's never caused a well to fail. Okay. But again, that's why we do the inspection of the well first.
Okay, and then, so to answer the second part of my question, suppose you go, this is hypothetical, and I know we're only talking, we don't want to talk hypothetical in 100-degree weather, but suppose you go down and do the testing. You also do an assessment as far as what's wrong, like what improvements the wells need. And at the end of the day, we really can't afford to go down to Rockland and share the water. Will the health department at least repair our wells for us and using federal money?
There's programs. All right. What we're proposing to do is effectively a step. It's a step in the engineering assistance program. There's a subsequent program run out of the Rhode Island Infrastructure Bank. Now, I can't speak for the board of the Infrastructure Bank, but what I will tell you is that there are there are programs, financing programs available absolutely including principal forgiveness, so to speak. Okay. And there are other programs that if it was assessed that there might be damage to the school's wells from this effort, I'm fairly confident that there
But
would
if
be
the
an
wells,
ongoing
if
effort.
the wells need repair and it does
Right.
work to combine the two systems together, the health department will come in and put on, they'll
If-
do what's
if
necessary
there's-
to.
If there was going to be a decision made that we want to combine, we want to provide service to Rockland Oaks.
Mhm.
There's no doubt in my mind that there's going to be a state component to that. Okay.
Okay.
That's going to be, at what the level of that is, I can't answer that question.
Okay.
That's up to the.
I want to bring it to
board.
the superintendent and I'd like the director of
have a que-
facilities
I've
to
got a
talk to
question.
us about scheduling. And before you go, I'd like to just hear from Erica.
And I know Kevin had his light on too. So we would not be doing this well testing if it weren't for the need of water in Rockland Oaks. Can you hear me? We would not be doing this well testing. We're only doing this well testing because Rockland Oaks needs this water. So is there any obligation or expectation from the school district if nothing is found to be wrong and we have plenty of water and everything looks great and we could hook up to Rockland Oaks? Is there an expectation or obligation to do so by allowing the testing to be done?
All right, I have to give you a two-part answer. In the evaluation we did in 2016, we actually did recommend that the existing wells be inspected and pumping tests be performed. But obviously that would have been on, financially, for the town or the school department to have to finance that.
That you said in 2016, what, I missed that. You recommended that they were.
In our evaluation, we recommended that the wells be inspected and undergo pumping tests because there was significant question. Now, if we do this work and it's determined that the wells are in really good shape and they have really good capacity and theoretically you could support Rockland Oaks, that's not an automatic, fait accompli here. That's you still, there's still the town and the school department still have to go through their own decision-making process, and you're going to need more information to even make that determination. Okay. We have to then extend the process that, define what the effective capacity of the wells is, define if there are any risk factors involved, do a more advanced determination of what's involved in getting the water from the school to Rockland Oaks. I mean, we have, I've done conceptual designs and cost estimates, but that's very preliminary. Also keep in mind, we have completed and submitted to Department of Health for their review an improvements design for the school's water system. Okay. And the expectation personally, from my perspective there, is that if you were going to go forward with those improvements, that you would want to be looking at the state, either between the Infrastructure Bank and the Rhode Island Department of Education, there's, funding available with different levels of either grants or principal forgiveness that you can take advantage of there also. Or at the worst case, below market interest rates on the money. So, and I know that from my experience with other school districts doing similar projects. So, sorry to be long-winded.
Yeah, honestly, the only question I had was if, and it sounds like we're gonna go through with the process. I think the common courtesy would be to give a notification to all the neighbors in that general area, so they're aware of what's gonna take place.
Yeah, what we would do is, and frankly, if you voted to authorize, say you voted to authorize tonight, I assure you, tomorrow, I'm pulling up the entire abutters list and sending out, notifications to everyone saying this is the work that's going to be done. This is when we're planning to be done, and also inquiring if they want to participate in the program as far as letting us put a transducer in their well. I want to stress transparency is extremely important in this situation. Oh, one other thing, because Jay just reminded me of this a few minutes ago. The school's irrigation system actually has a separate well to supply that, in case people weren't aware of that. Your irrigation is not being supplied off of the public water system serving the school. Okay. And that well was, I remember discussing it with town officials at the time. It's been a number of years ago
Can
that
I
that
just
occurred.
clarify, and I don't know if Jay can help me. I know that there's a separate well, Jay, down in Manning. Is there a separate well for this field up
There's
here?
a separate well behind my building that was drilled in
Can't hear you.
it was drilled in like 2016 behind the maintenance building.
For the practice field?
Yeah.
Okay,
There's a
There's
separate well for
separate
Manning as
well.
well. I don't remember what year. It wasn't that long ago, but it is a new well too. I mean, its own well.
that I think is only a year or two old.
If I could just walk through the timeline with you for just a minute. So if well 2 is, you're shutting well 2 off first, that will be shut off for 3 days.
It would probably be, yeah, it'd be 2 to 3 days. It'd be shut off. Yeah,
And well 3 would still be on
that's correct.
and operating.
That's
Then
correct.
you're going to turn well 2 back on.
Correct.
How long does it take before well 2 is up and operating correctly?
Hopefully a couple of minutes.
Okay. We don't have to worry about sediment, any of that. sort
Well,
of-
that's why we're doing the inspection. Now, if we do an inspection, say, you know, something, we've got some issues here to deal with. We would want to get, because of where we are relative to the beginning of the school year,
Yep,
frankly, we would want to bring the well back online. Okay. Go and do the inspection of, then we do inspect well 3.
right.
And then we would make the recommendation, here's what we think needs to be done as far as repairs or improvements to the well, or even just flushing them out or whatever. And we try to get that scheduled, say for a period when the school was not in session. Okay, say, you know, a break. Obviously, we get into the fall, the first couple of months of the school year, there's no significant breaks.
Right.
We're probably looking at Thanksgiving, but the good news is that work can be done even in the wintertime, just for what it's
Okay.
worth. But yeah, we're not going to shut the school down. We're not going to say, too bad you're out of water. We can't do that.
Right.
We definitely cannot do that. We wouldn't do that.
So one well shut down for a couple of days. You're gonna put that well back up. When that's operating optimally, then you'll shut well 3 down for a couple of days, do the test on that, and then turn that one back on.
That's correct.
So we will always have one functioning, operating appropriately well.
We will not cut the school off from fresh water supply.
And I'm assuming that you work Monday through Friday. You don't work weekends.
We work whatever we have to work.
Okay, thank you.
And if we have to work on a weekend, we will work on a weekend.
I'm just trying
okay.
to figure out the timing. 'cause
I mean,
I'm
listen,
really close.
if this was, you know, the beginning of July, maybe I wouldn't be that concerned about it,
Right.
but it's not. Okay, it's the middle of August.
Thank you.
Before I ask for a motion on this issue, I'd like to find out the motion. Are we going to determine what date it is tonight that they're going to do it? Jay, are you ready to provide any input on when you think is the best time? Because we can vote that in.
So the date doesn't really matter. It's not going to affect us at all. I've worked with Northeast
Because he
Water.
mentioned next week. Do you want it to happen next week?
The sooner the better, because
Okay.
it's not going to cripple us. We're not going to notice. So
How soon can he start? How soon can you start?
that was to you. How soon can you start?
Our plan right now is, we would probably be starting, I don't believe we can get everything mobilized for Monday of next week, but we're probably looking at Tuesday. If I
So
can
how
move it-
about if we just make the motion to do the testing the week of the
I
15th?
think we just we just pass the motion and then you guys want it done at the earliest possible
Prior
time,
to
but
school
we're
opening.
not, yes,
Okay,
cognizant that we need to open schools. That we don't want
Okay.
this to
Now,
continue.
Carolyn, honestly, before we pass a motion or have a vote, I know there's like 2 or 3 neighbors.
no, I just said, before I go, I'm gonna go for public comment. So, I'd like anyone who'd like to make a comment at this time on this issue to please come down. State your name and your address.
It's Ryan
And-
Adams at 5 Adams Way. Hi,
And
everybody.
if you could just talk right into the microphone because we're having a hard time. I'm sure you're having a hard time. hearing
Sorry,
us.
can everybody hear me? Oh, yeah, I can hear myself better now. One of the questions I have about the test, you guys have control of your irrigation wells, and that's the issue I have, which will come up later tonight. Sorry, you still can't hear me. The irrigation wells are the issue I have tonight. So are they, I want them shut off, but are they still going to run as normal with the test? Because if they don't run that day, it's going to falsify your test and possibly make your wells look better than they are.
So can you repeat his question? Because-
I think what you just said, right, was that, are you asking us if, not that you want them running all the time, but you want them to run as normal because it would falsify the test? My understanding, and I'm going to ask one of the experts over there to jump in on this, but we're talking about we're looking at testing the wells right here, right?
Correct.
Which again, but yes, that would, my understanding is that would we'd still be doing the irrigation that we're doing down at Manning, correct?
The problem is in the neighborhood, the irrigation wells are considered high capacity and they at 5 gallons a foot in your pipe, you don't have that type of water in any of your wells. So it's coming out of the bedrock to irrigate your fields. If they're shut off for a day or two and the water level's allowed to come back up naturally, and then you do your test is going to be false. And the other question about the tests, is there some sort of factor in where we're in a severe drought now, but what happens when all of a sudden next year, the year after we've connected in and you're at an extreme drought? What is your well doing then? And can you still support both?
I'm going to guess the best person to answer that question was Bob. If you could come back up to speak to what Mr. Adams just said about the bedrock and the.
Yeah, Mr. Adams makes some good points, and we would want other wells, whether they're private residential wells in the area or whether they're the school's on-site irrigation well or the well at Manning Field, operating as they might be operating. I don't know what the schedule might be for a well pumping at Manning Field. I plan to put a transducer in the irrigation well on the campus. We'll try to get a few days of monitoring and to create a baseline. But again, one of the things we can do in with the well inspection, we can find indications in the well what the normal static levels are and what the current static level is to assess the drought conditions. There are some things we can do, but again, are we in a drought? Are we in a severe drought? That can be open to some level of debate, but we're in a period where we've had very little rain for quite an extended period of time. So I would anticipate that I'd be surprised if the levels in the static level isn't down, potentially significantly from where it would be under wet weather conditions.
And
So-
the other piece that you spoke to that I maybe speaks to what Mr. Adams is speaking about is if we did at some point tie in, not that we're there right now, that may alleviate some of the strain on the surrounding wells.
That's correct. Yeah.
Possibly. I'm not,
It's possible. Yeah, it's possible.
Do we have anyone else that'd like to make a comment?
Hi, hi, my name is Norman Monroe. I live at 104 Rockland Road, which is Rockland Oaks. There, I am the resident commissioner.
Norman, can you please bring the mic right in front of your mouth, please?
Okay,
No, just
I am
bring it down with the hand. There you go.
I am a resident commissioner at Rockland Oaks there. Getting that water from here would help the residents of Rockland Oaks quite a lot there. One thing I wanted to do tonight there is apologize to the school committee. We had enough information to come to you 2 months ago and put this through there. Why we didn't, I can't say there. So, we could have had a head start on this and been further along there. So I'm sorry for that as
we can't go back, right? No apologies.
we can't go back.
we can
No,
go
no,
forward.
no, no, we can't go back. I just wanted to inform you, one of our other problems with the wells down there is that we have some contamination in the wells. Last test from the health department there told us that we had radium in the water there, and it was 0.6 above the EPA's level that you could drink. I don't know if you know what radium is there, but it's a metal and it's a radioactive metal, light, but it is a radioactive metal there. That's another reason why we'd like to get the water there. It's that from what I found out about it is that the young people, teenagers and stuff, it wouldn't bother that much if they didn't consume a lot of the water there. The elderly, though, are on that flyer that we got. And one of the things that it said is that they should consult their doctor, right? Which I went to see mine. I had an appointment, and he said he'd have to get more information from the health department there. So, you know, the water is needed down there, and I know that, but this is just a test, right? And you're not bound to anything in this. And like the representative from Northeast Water said, there, I met him back in 2018, I think, when he came down there to talk to us about doing this back then. There, if we don't get it, right, our only other options are to drill 2 new wells down on our property, and with the water there, it would be a chance that we could hit a dry hole, you know, where we're not getting anything or nothing that would really supply there, or we could get the same contaminations that we had in the other wells there.
So
Um,
I think I just wanted just to say this. I thank you for coming and thank you for speaking to us tonight. You're our neighbors. And I think whatever we can do, this is the least we can do, is explore this option. I think most of us have lived in Situate for a period of time, and we're very much aware that there have been water problems at our one and only senior housing complex. So I think we owe this to our neighbors to at least investigate if this is a possibility where we could do this. Obviously, our first priority
Correct.
needs to be to our students here and to our other neighbors. We can't, drown everybody else's, but that's not what we're
Yeah.
looking to do. So we greatly appreciate
Yeah.
you coming here tonight and speaking
Yeah.
to us. We look forward to moving forward and getting more information to see if we can do something collaboratively.
We'll put this back on the agenda again, Norman, because it's very warm and we'd like to move on to other public comment.
All right.
But you'll have another opportunity once we get the results back and we put this back on the agenda. So if
Okay.
there's anybody else that would like to make a public comment.
All right,
please come up.
that's fine. I understand it is hot. in
It's
here.
hot, hon. Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you. But
All
thank you for
right.
coming.
Yeah.
We got you. We understand.
Ray Greglovich, 16 Woodland Road. Given that this is being viewed as a long-term solution for Rockland Oaks, I would suggest that we try to replicate a scenario when we test the system that approximates full capacity at the school. So we're not getting a false reading in 5 or 10 years down the road. And we're at 1,100 or so people in the school. We still have water capacity for both here and Rockland Oaks.
Okay. Is there anybody else that would like to make a public comment on this issue? Just before you do make a comment on this issue, I do want to let everyone know I am going to ask the committee to take one more item out of order, and that, maybe 2, which will be the Manning and Tasker Fields discussion. Because I know there's a lot of parents here and it's warm, and I would like to make sure that we get you up and hear you and hear this issue. It's been a lot of conversation about it, but before we do that, please, Suzanne, tell us who you are and where you live.
Sure. Suzanne Adams, 5 Adams Way. Been a lifelong Situate resident, but what I want to ask is I'd like to understand more about the test. My understanding is that we pump all the water out of the well and then watch it refill. And I'm just wondering, how long does this test run? Knowing that we're having issues in the neighborhood right now with the levels of the wells because of the increased usage by the schools. I'd just like to understand potential impact further to us. So we've definitely had to watch our water usage the past few days. Our well ran dry on Saturday. We've had a lot of issues with the increased usage in the neighborhood.
I
So
understand.
I'd just like to understand, I totally understand the need. I understand the need for testing. I'm not against that. I think it's a great thing. I just don't know that now is the right time.
No, I
with
think you and your
everything else
husband have
that's
been
happening.
very patient on a couple of issues that have happened to your property around our schools. And so Bob, will we be emptying the wells, and what is again the risk to the neighbors?
And I know, Bob, you spoke earlier saying that if we
It-
take this vote, you're ready to go. You would be in contact with the neighbors. I got two right in my eye right over there that I'm sure would very much like to do whatever it was you said, whether it be test their well or work. I just want to work collaboratively with everybody, right?
Absolutely. We want to work collaboratively and in a transparent manner. Now, but to get to the question, the last thing I want to do in a pumping test is pump all the water out of the well. We do not, the whole idea of the pumping test is we want to find what they call the effective capacity or effective yield of a well, which means when you start pumping a well, the level starts going down, which we want to find the stabilization point where we no longer draw down at whatever the pumping rate happens to be. And then we want to hold that for a period of time to confirm that we have what they call well stabilization. So we don't want to pump it all the way down.
Can
Okay.
you just tell us, based on your experience and from all the testing that you explained that you've done, how many times this testing has affected homeowners around this testing?
Oh, I can tell you that pumping tests have been done. So, again, when we do pumping tests, we want to find what they call our boundary conditions. Because we don't want to have adverse impacts on neighboring wells. So we have to assess where are those neighboring
Okay.
wells. Okay. That's the whole point of the pumping test, because the effective yield is another phrase is effective safe yield.
Yeah.
That's the whole point. We can't overdraw the well to begin with. That's bad for any well. Number one. Number two, we can't overdraw the well to the point where we are having a potentially adverse impact on neighboring wells.
Okay,
Because then we're not solving a problem. We're actually creating problems there. So that's why it would actually be beneficial if we could have, some neighbors participate in the program. Okay.
okay. I'm
I
gonna-
have 24 well transducers, so I can put transducers in quite a few wells.
Okay, thank you, Bob. Thank you for coming tonight. I'd like to make a motion, I'd like to ask for a motion for the approval of the request from the Situate Housing Authority for to authorize the Rhode Island Department of Health to do an assessment of the wells that service the Situate High School to determine if they provide adequate water for the Rockland Oaks community.
So move.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
I'd like to thank everyone who came up to explain this to our community, and we'll put it on the agenda once to hear the results. Thank you, Bob, for coming. If any neighbors would like to just get a card from Bob, please check in with him before he leaves. I'm going to ask the committee to take another item out under new business, item 1 and 2. If we could take those out of order. It's discussion, action, vote for Manning baseball fields update, as well as Tasker Field. Do I have a motion?
I make a motion.
Do I have a second? All those in favor?
Aye.
So, I'd like to, before we, open it, and then we're going to open this for public comment as well, because it's new business, which we always do. I'd like to have Sal, our athletic director, come on up and talk to us, and answer a few questions, Sal. One of the things that, Sal, that's been discussed at length, and it's been issues have been raised about it, is the use of Tasker Field, and it's all kind of intertwined, right? Because Cato Field is still, we're still evaluating this, and hopefully that will hopefully be back soon, I'm hoping. But in the meantime, we have to go back to the fields that we used to use. Manning Field was used forever, for everything, in the high school but now I'm hearing that we may need to use Manning Field plus another field because we need to give Manning a rest. And so Tasker Field came to our attention as a potential opportunity to use them at least for practice, if not for games. I had an opportunity to talk to Councilman Grandy. He explained to me that there's like 400 children that play on that field. And that right now, and I didn't know whether or not the school committee knew this, but Tasker Field services are all of our middle school sports for soccer. So they are helping the schools right now, but there are some parents here tonight that I think that have wanted us to explore whether or not there would be any opportunity to use that field for the high school. And I'd like to get your opinion on what the need for that would be.
So we used Tasker Field last year as an overflow for a girls' game because we had run out of time. We had to squeeze in a couple games. I reached out to the powers that be, and we used Tasker for one high school girls' game last year. As in terms of the Tasker issue, I was told we put a plan together, and the plan that was going forward, and I was told that we were going to utilize Manning, and Manning was going to be brought up to par. So as far as I know, Manning has been worked on. Manning has gotten new sod. Manning has gotten seed. Supposedly it was rolled and leveled. This is what I've heard. Okay. In terms of Tasker, the powers that be, Tasker is an issue well above my realm. The powers that be have summoned me to a meeting. I went to a meeting 2 weeks ago at Town Council Chambers. I met with the members of the Situate Youth Soccer Association. I met with a couple of council members. Kirk Loisel was there. I was the only school person there, and I told them the same thing I'm telling you. The use of Manning Field is outside my purview. If somebody tells me we're going to use Manning Field, I can make Manning Field.
Manning or Tasker?
Tasker Field. I'm sorry, Tasker Field. If somebody says we're going to use Tasker Field because Manning's deemed unsafe or we can't play on Manning, then I use Tasker Field. But right now, as the athletic director, I was told that we're using Manning Field. All my games are scheduled at Manning Field. My football games have been all scheduled at Johnston High School. Our home football games, that is. There are some issues with Tasker. I understand our Saturday games would be in tough shape because that's when they have their recreation. This is what they told me. They have practices there, they said, every night starting at 4 o'clock. Our middle school kids are generally off the field by 4:30. And they don't cut the grass. I mean, they cut the grass, but they don't cut the grass low enough that we could play on it.
I just want to ask a clarifying question. So you're the director of athletics.
Correct.
And as far as you have been instructed, our games are going to take place, the soccer games.
Soccer
girls-
at Manning.
Girls and boys, high school soccer. I'm just being clear. So our middle school sports are at Tasker.
Correct.
As the athletic director, to your knowledge, our boys and girls soccer games and practices are going to be at Manning Field.
Correct.
So my question isn't for you. My questions would be probably for Jay at this point. Are those fields going to be ready for them to play on? Because that's the crux of all of this. We can go back and forth about what, and that really has nothing to do with.
Oh, yes.
So to answer your question, I honestly don't know. We just put sod down and it's doing pretty good. I don't know, when's your first soccer game?
Practice start 22nd.
So we're going to be very, very close for the start of practice.
So, and again, no disrespect to you, Sal, as far as being the director of athletics. it's not but it's not his call to say where they're playing. It's somebody unilaterally is going to have to make a decision. That's not you to say. So if it's not going to be ready, then they would have to let you know
Okay.
or work collectively to have an alternate plan. I just don't want to end up where we are every September when there's an issue. So we can only work with the information that we have.
Can I just follow up with that, Colleen? So Sal, who made the arrangements for the football team to go to Johnston?
I did.
Okay, so you are scheduling venues and fields as part of the athletic director, because we didn't have a field for that. So let me just ask, this is news to me that we may not have this field ready. Do you think, and Mike, you're sitting there, hi, what's plan B? I mean, if,
So quite honestly, Carolyn, or Chair Diaz, I'm sorry.
no,
but-
that's fine.
So quite honestly, the issue goes back well before Jay, Lori. The issue goes back to once Cato was built, Manning was disregarded. That's where the issue is. So Manning has always been Manning Field. And I also understand that Manning is not Cato Field. It'll never be Cato Field. Ideally, Cato would be the place to play. We can't play for whatever the reasons are and what's going on. And I understand it's in litigation. So Manning is what we have. In terms of the preparation of the field and getting the fields ready, my understanding is that Manning is good to go. That was my understanding. It was being rolled, it was being seeded. So I had to proceed as such. So when I schedule the games and go in the computer, I go in the computer and I say, okay, our home games, Manning at 4:00, blah, 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 all this good stuff. The other issue that we run into with Tasker Field, and this is a whole separate issue, is if busing's a problem again, where schools can't get here until 4:30, 5:00, or we can't get out until after 4:00. Well, us getting out isn't the problem. I guess it's schools coming to us after 5:00. We'll be using Tasker Field right in the middle of their practices. So that was another concern that Situate Soccer had. Again, if the school committee and the town council got together and said, hey, we're going to make up a plan and we can use soccer, I can work some magic with the schedule and try to make something work.
Okay.
But that's.
But we
that's
can
where-
come up with a plan B if need be. I do want to piggyback on something. I
Sure.
actually heard from Mike. You just stated it. And, and Mr. Grandy talked to me about it because he's been in soccer forever. And he said to me that Manning Field, I mean, I know that we had the DPW come in and they actually tried to do some leveling, and we're working on it. But Manning Field is not in any worse shape this year than it's been in the last 25 years, he said. So
I
Once
can't,
you-
I honestly,
I
I
just
can't.
want to make sure that I get everything that I'm hearing out so I can hear back what your response is for that.
I can't speak to that. All I can speak to is what I know. And what I know is there is a group that does not want us on Tasker Field, period, end of story. And I don't want to get involved with it. It's outside of my realm. And if they're going to come up with any issues or discussions that they'd like to have, that's fine. Right now, in order for Tasker to be usable by our school department or our school teams, the only way I could see it happening is there would have to be an agreement between the school committee and the town council. That's the only way I could see it
Okay.
happening.
Sal,
I-
can I
I-
ask you a question?
Yeah.
From what I've heard over the last couple of years with the field at Manning being an issue, the high school could not play any games there because it was an issue when my boys were playing. They could not play any games at Tasker because the field dimensions are not big enough for high school soccer. It's fine for middle school, but not for high school.
So
My other question
Yeah.
is, you said they could practice at Tasker, both the high school and middle school?
just the middle school practice
Just
at
the middle
Tasker.
school.
Because normally the teams don't want to practice where they don't play. If we're, even when we had Cato Field, if we're playing on turf, you want to practice on turf, the ball's faster. If you're playing at Manning on, a more compact ground, it's a lot quicker. It's a lot quicker game than it is at Tasker Field where the grass is like 4 inches high. Tasker is plenty big enough for soccer. So part of the plan or what they give us every year for a section to use in middle school it keeps it small. So we can get away with the middle school on the sections they gave us, but I mean, you could probably fit two regulation soccer fields at Task if you had to.
Okay.
Well, the only reason I was mentioning about the practice is if we could get 2 weeks of practice for the high school teams at Tasca, it would alleviate or give Manning Field 2 more weeks to develop and grow, which would probably, because honestly, I took a walk down there Saturday and it's coming along. I mean, does it need a little bit more water and time for the grass to grow? And it'd be a much better shape. But if they could get 2 more weeks or 3 more weeks of the kids playing at Tasca, that would be great.
So the way the schedule works is we open up on August 22nd is when all Rhode Island's Classic League sports outside of football. Football starts on the 15th. August 22nd, all of our teams start to practice. Usually they have some scrimmages. Our coaches have been smart enough, for lack of a better term, to schedule our scrimmages away, knowing that there was some work on Tasca. Our first home game, I believe, is September 9th. And maybe there may be one sooner, but if that was the plan, I could probably even flip a home and home if that's what we had to do to give it a little more time.
Kevin,
but I
I
just
think
need-
that's an excellent point. Mary.
Yeah,
please.
I was thinking along of the same veins when I heard the discussion and it mentioned that middle school uses Tasca. My thinking was, why can't we just flip it and we'll find someplace else for middle school and let's let the high school kids have the benefit of Tasca, especially the senior kids, who I'm sure want to have a great last season of high school play. I don't know Kevin's suggestion to open the door for a couple of more weeks, but why not just flip the whole season? Just a thought.
You mean taking the high school, putting them at Tasca?
And put
and
the
middle
middle school
school-
at Manning.
Yeah, just
Um,
flip it.
So if that's what the decision wants to be, I guess I could do that. It's kind of hard to say Manning's unplayable and then I'm going to take the middle school kids and put them there. I think we're kind of opening ourselves up. But
I'm just thinking of size because I think I heard that the Manning soccer lacrosse field is not of the dimensions for the boys soccer.
no, it's fine. It's not for
Oh,
boys and girls.
Tasca is not?
Yeah, so they're saying, so the space that they give us at Tasker is not large enough for a regulation soccer field. Tasca is plenty big enough, but they allocate a space and they say, at the school department, you can use this space. The space that they give
So
us,
when the middle school kids are at Tasca, they're just using part of the space?
they're using, so in the middle school, we can get away with 100 yards by 50 yards. And the high school, I need at least 130 yards by probably 70 to 80 yards.
And
it's a
that
big
couldn't be
difference.
negotiated, you don't think?
Sure, if that's, again, it's got to be a negotiation well above my level.
I think right
That's the
now, I
barrier. I
think we
think
need to find out a solution to see if we can get an alternative play on that field to allow it to finish to repair itself. I don't know, Sala, if you have anything through with the Interscholastic League that you can, or other communities that we can get our students just to practice through that first game. And we can have the first game at Manning, but at least let's give it the 6-8 full weeks of growth and
So Carol,
repair.
you're suggesting us taking our kids to another community to play soccer? Like for
Just to
practice?
practice.
So, but again, I'm just gonna come back to, and I'm gonna hit it right in the head. Why can't we try to make this work at Tasca? Like, why
Because-
are we taking our kids to another, and I'm not trying to be argumentative,
No.
but
I'm
why-
only because when I talk to, and I know Bianca's smiling at me. And I'm sure she's gonna come up and make a lot of clarifications as well as Jackie. And as soon as Mike's done, we'll have you up. But, and this is where I don't know, I'm at a disadvantage. It comes down to the scheduling. And he says, when you take the schedule of the practices and the games that happen at the high school, and you try to coordinate that with all of the recreational games that are happening. He said it's virtually impossible to find the time in the schedule to bring the high school games there. And I specifically pushed for just the practice. I do want to say, and he was very clear about this. Councilman Grandy said that he's not the last voice on here. It's the land trust. He was just trying to give me some history and some background on and what his view was as far as some of the barriers for us to be able to play there. So I just want, there's two things I definitely want us to think about before we leave tonight. Kevin, that is, we have to make sure that we allow that field to rest as long as we can. And then we have to figure out, what are we doing, as Colleen said, to fix
The-
it. to rest.
Caroline, I will mention one more thing that Tasker is very finicky about, is the height of the grass. Now, the height of the grass at the Manning Field for soccer is much shorter and faster. They like theirs higher, so the field maintains over long periods of time.
So in terms of the land trust, we've tackled this issue 2 years ago when middle school, or three, even more than that, when middle school started there, and even with high school. Mr. Bauer, the head of the land trust, mentioned as long as soccer is being played on that field, it doesn't matter.
Okay,
So soccer is allowed on that field. It doesn't matter who's playing it, he said. It's soccer, so no football, no
So,
lacrosse. But
based on our dilemma here, what do you or Mike, come on up, because poor Mike, you've been up and down, call you down and then.
It's
we
okay.
let you
I just
stand.
want to tell you what we've done so far. So we started to talk in June. Lori and I had quick conversations, not quick, but conversations in June. Lori asked for a plan to be executed by June 24th. We put a committee together. Most of the amazing supportive parents here were on that committee. So we met right after graduation, so June 10th. We formed a committee. We talked through, okay, what's option A, what's B, what's football, what's soccer. And then I met with Gary Grandy through SYB. And Carolyn, Gary shared with me the same kind of response that it sounds like he shared with you as well. So I think that what the crossroad is right now is that the school department, the school committee, the superintendent, principal, athletic director, we're not what is it? Situate, thank you, Situate Youth Association. So what we're being told by members of that board is that for many reasons, it's not an option for the high school. I will also say that, you know, our plan A was to get Manning as playable as possible. My understanding is that it's been rolled, the town's been there. We looked last couple of weeks ago, thanks to Bianca and Coach Tim and some other people, that the seed wasn't doing so well. So I know Lori was down there. They cut sod in there. Me and Mr. Soprano went down there today. We looked at it. And right now the sod looks great. Kevin, I love the idea of maybe looking at another plan to give the grass at Manning a little bit more rest. I think that's a really great idea. So I'd like to take that and kind of maybe form the committee again tomorrow and re-up the plan. The plan has been shared in my midsummer newsletter, so it's public. We have a whole, what does athletics look like? It was a thoughtful plan, so I don't want anyone to think that we're all just kind of throwing stuff at the wall to see what's happening here. So what I would suggest, and I'll take Lori's next steps with this, is to put the committee back together this week and start to vet some of this, a little bit more of this out.
Okay, Michael, thank you so much. Sal, I know that you came here tonight with a sick family member. And I really appreciate you coming here
no
because
problem.
your name is constantly bantered about. I think they may be
All
people
good, I'm
think you
sure.
have maybe a different purview, but having you here tonight was certainly helpful for our committee, and I really appreciate it. So please, unless anybody has any other questions for Sal,
I'll
please
wait.
go home to your sick child.
Hi, Jackie LaPlante, 11 Overlook Trail. Was on the committee with Mike and we did work hard and come up with options A, B, C. But my question is, we can meet all day long. But who makes the decision? Who says yes?
That's a really
Says
good.
yes to what?
Anything like playing on Tasca. Who says yes
Well,
to that?
That's kind of what I spoke to earlier. So we have a plan. So I think the Manning piece, is going to be, that's going to be Lori's decision to make in consultation with our director of facilities, probably with Mr. Hassel. And that's a yes, we need to make that decision. Yes.
But if that, so we were here, I don't mean to cut you off, I'm sorry. We were here in June or May at the school committee meeting, and you've been working so hard at Manning. I give them credit. But here we are, soccer starting next week. And for the record, I don't even have a kid in the game. No one. So I'm just here because I care about this community and the kids, but we're here now and it may not be playable. They're watering it, but we're in a drought. They're doing the best they can. So if these kids can't play on Manning, who says yes to something else? You know, Sal's saying he needs to be told yes. So who's saying yes?
Well,
Is it
Jack-
you? Is it the student council? Yeah. The town council? It's frustrating. We have a
Jackie, I-
beautiful field at Tasca. I don't know if the kids can play on it, they like it or whatever, but you're gonna farm us out to someone else again, just like you did with lacrosse.
Well,
And they
that's not-
couldn't play.
And that's not what we want to do, obviously.
I know,
And that's,
but
but again, we collectively cannot say, yes, you can play on Tasca. I mean, obviously, we know
Okay.
that. That's above our
but
purview.
so if Manning's not playable for the first couple weeks, I think that's a great plan, Kevin.
So that was what was just.
What are we
discovered.
doing?
So that's when it goes back to Mr. Hassel to say, and it's going to be, it sickens me if one of those options is not going to be Tasca Field. I can't, it's our own town. I
Right.
know Mr. Gelsomino and Superintendent Andres and Mr. Hassel can probably pick up a phone and get us a field for a couple of weeks if that's what we need to do. It sickens me, but
Mhm.
I can't, and I don't know what that answer is, Jackie.
Okay, I
Um,
just was
no,
throwing that
and
out there, like,
and maybe the town council does, maybe we don't own that property, but neither does the Situate Youth Soccer Association.
exactly. So that was my question. Like, if we're in a jam, who can say yes to the things we need?
So Jackie, just to go back to Mike, if you could just clarify, did you just say that there's a board that who has the authority over Tasca, and it's those people that give
You
us
may
the
know that.
approval or not to play on it?
Yeah, they're saying no, I think.
Bianca,
Bianca knows.
don't forget your name and address. Jackie, don't go far. Stay with us.
Bianca Mancini, 665 Hope Furnace Road. So first of all, just to clarify, because I was going to say this anyway when I got up here, I am super appreciative of the work that has been thrown at Manning. I don't want anyone to think that the parents collectively and the kids for that matter take it for granted, because it's been amazing. You guys have done so much work and we appreciate it. And I felt good about it. I was there yesterday, standing picnic tables, and I felt good about it. And I do feel like it's better than when we started. Anything I say to you tonight, because I'm going to clarify all of it, I've said to Sal and I've said to Mike, so they know nothing is a surprise. When we met at this meeting in June, we had a plan. We did discuss Tasca as a backup plan in the event that Manning would not be ready in time for school. And Mike said he would talk to Gary, which he did. I wasn't happy with that answer because in my opinion, unless you can show me proof why you can't make something happen, no is not a good enough answer. Erica was kind enough to set up a meeting with Gary and I. She passed my number along to him and I reached out to him, which at that point, he told me he was trying to gather information with the appropriate people and would get back to me. When he got back to me, the sense that I got was that the answer was no. There would not be any way to accommodate any of the high schoolers. And I tried again to make my point that this was just a backup plan, that if we could just have something in the event that Manning was as bad as it was last year. And I'll remind you again, we had 7 injuries last year and the field was horrible. He pulled a meeting together, which Sal talked about, which included the town council president at that meeting, who, let me remind you, is a coach here in Situate for girls soccer, and the president of SYSA, which is Larry Sprague. And they had a meeting and didn't give me any opportunity to ask questions or discuss what I understood to be the possibility of having 3 games there that would conflict. None of that was allowed. I was told no. I was told that it's for Situate Youth Soccer and that's it. So I'm upset. I'm upset because not that I want the kids to play at Tasca. I want them to play at Manning. That's a home field. I get it. I don't understand how you can look at these kids, which by the way, I checked, 92% of the kids on the boys and girls soccer teams have played recreation for Situate Youth Soccer, have played competitive for Situate Youth Soccer, have refereed for Situate Youth Soccer, and 18 parents have volunteered as coaches throughout the years. So how embarrassing that you have all of these kids go through your program into high school and now they have nowhere to play and you turn your back on them and don't say, let's see if we can make it work. I'm not even expecting a yes. Just have the conversation. So all of this back and forth about who says yes and who says no and who's in charge, at the end of the day, it is town property, which my taxes pay for, mine. And in fact, I'm very good friends with the Tasca family. I spoke to them this weekend because I was annoyed about the situation. When that land was donated to the land trust, and this is verbatim, it was with the intent that it would be an athletic complex for the residents and children of Situate, not Situate Youth Soccer. So I'm disgusted. I'm disgusted with the fact that we even have to have this conversation at a school committee meeting, that something so simple as a field for kids to play on has become this much of an issue. I'm disgusted by all of it. And you all know how I feel. Athletics is not my number one, but it makes a difference. To some kids, it's all they have. It's all they have. So I don't care how we have to do it. I like the idea of giving Manning a break. I think Manning looks great. I looked at it yesterday. To me, I don't play soccer. My daughter said that if the grass was cut, she'd be okay with it. That's all I need to hear. That's all I need to hear. I want the concession stand open. You guys know I have school spirit up the wazoo. I just don't like the fact that when we have to do the right thing in this town, we can't seem to figure out how to come full circle and pull everybody together. That's what I have to say about it.
So I just need to expand on that for a second. And I'm Bianca, I agree with every single thing you just said. Every single thing you just said. I've never heard that the town council told us no. I've never heard that the conservation board told us no, or land trust board. I've never actually heard that Situate Youth Soccer Board told us no. So we keep referencing a individual or a person saying, no, you can't use this. But where does these are, and so, but so where does that land?
So
I just wanna-
go ahead.
with
I
the
just
thought,
wanted to
please.
clarify what he
So-
said he was representing when he told me
So,
that.
Again, what you represent, so I am a member of the Situate School Committee. I can make zero decisions other than if I sit at this table.
Correct.
Carolyn is the chair of this committee. Carolyn can make zero decisions unless she sits at this table as part of a body. So, and I can't say this enough, like I was saying to Sal, it's above his pay grade to be fighting for who can, is it us as a school? Because now we're talking, I'm at a loss. I really
Agreed.
am. Like, and it's, so the body that we should, I'm assuming, be in contact with is the town council. I'm not going to Situate Youth Soccer.
I don't know if that's the case because I've tried that route and I feel like so Gary, not to throw Gary under the bus, but Gary told me that he was the town council representative that is the liaison to, I believe, the land trust and Situate Youth Soccer because he serves on, I believe he serves on the board of Situate Youth Soccer. I may be wrong. And that's fine. So if it's up to the land trust because they dictate what it's used for, then would that not be the only person that we would have to have the conversation with?
And again, somebody spoke this evening, and I think it was Sal that said, as far as the Situate Land Trust is concerned, again, they're not about the day-to-day use. It's what purposes. No, we can't have football. We're not going to have motocross over there, right? But passive recreation, AKA soccer, I'm assuming they have no say in the matter.
It just opens up a lot of questions for me because in my opinion, if Situate Youth Soccer, are they leasing the space from the land trust? Are they paying a fee to use it? You know, I think in terms of financial. So if that's a town property that is supposed to be used by town people and children, why is Situate Youth Soccer getting the only use of that field? And it may be that they pay to use it, and that's fine. I just want a clear-cut answer from someone. Just someone please come out and say, this is how it works. This is who's using it. Sorry, we can't help you. It goes up everybody's, you know what, to see the middle schoolers playing there and the high schoolers get told no. Sorry, I know it's different, but it just does. It's just bad optics all around. And the lack of communication and the way it was handled when, you know, I'm told I'll get back with you and then a secret meeting is held and no one even gives me the opportunity to ask a question, it's in very poor taste. These are elected officials. You serve at the townspeople's request. You just don't do that. You just don't do that. So it's fine. We can play at Manning. It is no problem. I just want it to be on the record that the way
But
that's
it is a problem if we can't.
It
that-
is.
That's.
it is.
keeps coming
We
back.
need a backup plan. We need a backup plan, which is what I said in June. And that's all I was trying to accomplish with this entire conversation was to
I-
have a
Getting
plan
all
in
fired
place.
up, Bianca.
I know. Colleen, anytime. I'm fired up every day.
I do know that, I think the soccer association has raised substantial amounts of money. They've actually they've taken kind of control and care of it. And
Correct.
I think over the years that they, that it's kind of given them,
I
maybe
mean,
the authority. I don't know.
okay, that's fine. But again, if it's a price that needs to be paid, have that conversation. I'm not saying the school is
No,
going
I
to pay to play there, but just have that conversation and say,
No,
you know, we have to worry about
even
the
if they
money
can just
investment
help
that we
us,
have.
even if it's to help us, to help heal Manning Field a little bit more before we start playing on
Hey,
it.
I mean, at this point, if I never stepped on Tasker Field again, it'd be a blessing because I'm so disgusted about the whole thing. I sat there every week for summer league and watched the girls play and thought to myself, why can they play summer league, but not their fall season? So, I'm disgusted, but to me, this is a community that is supposed to work together, regardless of what committee, what governing body. And as far as I'm concerned, right now, the only people that are doing anything is you, because Manning is being worked on. You listened to what we said, you took it and you made a plan. And we appreciate that. We appreciate that.
We're trying.
So
I was
Bianca,
chasing
quick
the geese on
question.
it yesterday.
Maybe it's a dumb question, but we agreed here tonight, we, school committee, school department, we don't have the authority to authorize, schedule the use of Tasker Field. It's owned by the town.
Right.
Have you addressed the town council during public comment?
So
Similar to the presentations that you've done with us?
So I asked for it to be added to the agenda, the town council agenda, I believe it was 2 months ago, 2.5 months ago. They added it to the meeting that I couldn't attend. And from what I understand, I didn't watch it back, but from what I understand from people that watched it, it was squashed pretty quickly when it came up. And
But
then it,
public comment with people present, as you know, a number of people present, with kids present.
Right.
Kids who get up and
Right.
speak. It's powerful.
oh, I agree. I
Yeah.
agree. I mean, the thing is, I guess that'll be my next step. It's just how far we want to take it. When I
know.
saw Manning yesterday, I said, okay, I'm gonna let this lie for a little bit and see what happens. But I want it to be known here what the reasoning is and why I was requesting Tasker. I don't want you to think that for 1 second, we think that
Mhm.
Manning is not an acceptable field. I don't want to be stuck where we are right now with an unplayable field and nothing to back us up. And the same goes for the spring sports, lacrosse too. There needs to be a plan in place, which I think they have. That was the intent when the parents got together, was to say, let's just get ahead of it. And we are willing to help. We've always said that. Let us help. So I don't want there to be any confusion as to what my request was in regards to Tasker, because I think there were some things thrown out there that were incorrect. It was truly just to have a backup plan in place in the event we needed it. And even that wasn't acceptable.
Bianca, when you mentioned this meeting that you were not allowed to speak at, is that because you were not present?
I was not invited. I was told that he would be gathering information and speaking to the appropriate people. And then a meeting was had in which I pretty much was told a plan was in place. I shouldn't have even requested Tasker. That's pretty much what was said. So
And then you said you asked for this item to be put on a town council agenda.
It
And they put
was.
it on, but you were not able to
I
attend. the
couldn't
meeting.
attend that meeting and then it hasn't been on since. So,
But to-
and I haven't asked.
To
be
Mary's point, you can still show up
I
and
can.
public comment with a large group of people and students, and that will get.
So is it
attention.
my understanding though, that something has to be on the agenda in order to
No.
speak?
Not during public comment.
Okay, so I didn't understand. I didn't realize that. I thought it had to be on the agenda to be able to
Storm
speak
the
to it.
gates.
Okay,
Bianca, I just want to add.
well noted.
It appears that the Situate Youth Soccer's priority is not the children in the town, but their grass. Because all they've cared about over those years
Yes,
is how the grass is
How the grass
growing and
looks.
thick.
Yep.
And honestly, we're talking about the town council. The town council president is the assistant soccer coach. It just shows you where they stand.
Correct.
It's sad.
Well, that's honestly, when I found out that Abby was at that meeting, that really hurt, because I thought to myself, these are your kids that, we're requesting them to play on it. I don't understand. I would think you'd be able to make that decision for whatever. And let me say this too. I have spent 12 years at Tasca Field, every rec season and almost every competitive season. My daughter started playing at 4. She played every year. She refereed almost every year that she could. My husband coached. There is no way, and if I have to prove it, I will. There is no way there are more than 25 kids on that field during the week for practices. That field is massive. So that's a little bit of an extension that the field is at capacity during the week, because it's not. So, I think the logistics of it are inflated a bit. That's an argument for another time. But again, I don't want to take up any more of your time. I don't want to make it any more of an issue than it is. All I wanted was a backup plan. And I think that we have some serious work to do in this town as far as communication between governing
As
bodies.
far as working together, and I want to go to Jackie after this comment. Tonight we just voted to work together and collaboratively with the town to help out a town problem.
Correct. It should be done in
Yeah.
reciprocation. So
You've certainly piqued my interest in how this whole process works. with
Definitely be
Tasca,
on.
And I'm
Thank
gonna,
you.
it makes you think, right?
yeah.
Thank you.
Jackie?
I just want to put it out there too, that, so again, Manning is looking much better. Thank you. But I know it's the fall, but spring comes quickly, and Manning is too small for boys lacrosse to even think about having a game there. And they haven't had a home game in years and years and years because of the Cato situation. So if Cato is not done for the fall, for the spring, I want to put it out there now that we need to start thinking about what these boys are going to do, because they deserve it too. And guess what? Tasca is big enough for lacrosse. I know they beat up the field a little bit, but we should do something for them as well.
Well-
Just throwing it out there that if we don't think months ahead, we get jammed up because we're here. And I know there's so many other things to think about.
Well, it's a
but
good point, because if we're going to approach them, we should approach them with
About-
all of
yeah.
our needs and see what we can.
Yeah,
do.
and I just wish, and a lot of you know me, that we just all work together, because what are we doing for the kids? And I hope that they can hear that as well. But thank you for everything you do.
No, thank you, Jackie. Is there anybody else that would like to make a public comment on this issue?
It's Ryan Adams at 5 Adams Way again.
Hi,
My
Ryan.
issues aside, I don't know if anybody's looked at Tasca, but there's not a blade of green grass over there. So chances are the kids are gonna tear it up like a rototiller with their cleats. You guys are wishing for something that's not gonna happen. As far as Manning Field goes with your turf, it's time to readjust your water to more at night than during the day. Your roots of your sod are not going deep enough. Your edges are starting to burn. It's starting to show signs that it's not adhering to the ground below. You don't get the roots down deep, it's going to die no matter how much water you put on it. You're watering it absolutely all day and it's not helping. You need to get the roots down deep or you're never going to play on it. It's going to come right up.
Thank you, Ryan. I do appreciate people recognizing the efforts that we're trying to make. Obviously, Cato's a heartbreak for not just the community, but really to the parents, especially the parents that work so hard to get that built, and not to have their children play on it is just, it's beyond heartbreaking. But I do want to thank you for recognizing the efforts, and I want to personally yell out to Jay Martin. Thank you for being diligent about this. I know you're talking to many people. You're trying to get the right input. You're trying to get the right balance. And I know that, hopefully when Cato opens, a lot of this will all be behind us. But right now, it's been a balance, and I've heard that from the people that are concerned about the watering, and and tonight you've heard the other side about them being concerned that the field isn't ready. So we're doing the best we can just to try to stay in the middle there and do the right thing. Before I move on from the field, I just would like to get an update on what we're doing with the baseball field. I know that, we talked about, hiring, Jay, I'm gonna need you probably for this. Now, again, when it comes to fields, my husband and I have very deep conversations and it's all one-sided because I don't know anything about grass. But can I ask you a question? If we bought, and don't laugh at me, suppose we just bought the machine or the rake for $27,000 and we use the rake to revitalize the sand. Is it possible that the rake could help us get it back to where it needs to be without spending $30,000 to have experts come in and mix up the sand with new sand? And then we don't have enough money for the rake.
So I've only been here for one baseball season and it was the longest couple of weeks of my life. There's something wrong with how that field drains and no pieces of equipment are going to rectify it until somebody that's qualified makes the adjustments to the field.
Okay, so it's a drainage issue is what
That-
I'm hearing.
that-
And I heard two things before I turn this over to the committee. When I talked to the DPW, they said that they would come in, they would put the rocks down, they would put the pipes in, they would drain it that way. But correct me if I'm wrong, the quote that you have from the professional company that works on fields, they weren't putting any true drainage in, they were just mixing up the sand. Is that correct?
And they're fixing, yes.
And grading it.
And
And in your opinion, and I know that I just don't want to spend more money if we really do need the pipes and the
So-
drainage
so
like that.
I
What's
don't-
your opinion on that, Jay?
I do not want to watch the baseball team have to cancel game after game, practice after practice while the softball team is playing on the same day. I think that it's money well spent to bring in a highly qualified company to make the field correct.
And you don't think that part of that solution is putting drainage in? You think it's just,
I am not a field expert. I bring in field experts to help me
but I
and
thought the quote didn't include that.
they were part of my last baseball season and they know what is going on that field and they were here before and they're well versed on that field and what needs to happen. Now, I want to be very clear, even after they come in and do it, there should be a piece of equipment that will help all the fields maintain. So just because we're paying somebody to come in and make the field correct, it's not like, okay, that's all fixed. Like all fields need continuous maintenance
I know. and
in
we
order
need,
to stay
like,
up.
4 more people to take care of them, but we don't have a lot of money. But
Nope,
can you
I
do me a
understand.
favor?
But Carolyn,
Can
again,
you get me the price? I'm sorry, one last thing, Kyle. Can you just get a new updated price on what that machine costs?
I can.
Okay, thank you. I'm
we
sorry,
have spent
Colin.
good money after bad on that field. We have spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on the baseball field since I've been on this committee for the last 8 years, and it's deplorable. So I'm at a loss. I want this fixed more than as much as anybody does. I know you said you're not a field expert and you brought the field expert in, but what we need is it's not about fixing, it's about maintaining and keeping things going. And I'm not pointing the finger at
No.
you, Jason. I know you're here, but it's infuriating the amount of money we've spent to be in the condition we're in again. And to me, to throw another 30, I'm like at a loss for words. So what is the plan? And unfortunately, we've had a multitude of different, so these people were involved before, and I'm not knocking them. They did whatever they needed to do. Well, where are we right now? Yeah.
So I'm gonna ask the school committee to just trust Jay and I to do this last bit of work and allow us to hire the company to work on this field this time and then hold us accountable for the way that the field looks and maintenance of it.
Can you like
We've
make him
just
sign?
started-
Can you
if
just
I
like,
can
listen,
just-
Lori, if you could make him sign in blood that he'll be here for.
I told him he
I
better
already
not
did.
put a tent down there at the soccer field, because if that grass died, he was gonna have a problem.
Jay,
So please let us do the work
but let me ask a
and then
question.
hold us accountable.
But before you do that, and I don't know if this is crazy to ask, and I was just going to say, let's just take a vote to hire the professionals to go in and fix the ball field.
I mean,
And
honestly,
get us the price on the machine to maintain it. But Jay, is it possible you can bring back to the school committee a plan of maintenance? How are you going to maintain it? How's the new machine? Just something that we can look at to have some kind of assurances, other than, you know, we want you can never leave here ever for the rest of your life.
Well,
So.
Yeah, what's tied, well, I just gotta jump in. This, I've been all over Manning Field. First of all, I think people should be aware. I did ask for professional oversight, and the response we had from the outreach to the Colliers people, who are highly respected in this field, is they can't provide oversight for a project that has nothing on paper. Not that it may not be a good plan, but with nothing in writing, no specification, no engineering, they really can't oversee it. So we do need a professional in this area, I feel, to do the work. But also to be mindful when you're picking the materials. From what I've been able to learn, we have what's being referred to as the Red Sox mix on the infield. And, it might be the Cadillac of infields. And when we look at our resources, I don't think we're Cadillac level. We just don't have the people, the resources to support the maintenance that kind of infield requires. So Jay, when we're looking at a plan to address the issues at Manning, I hope that when you're looking at the materials for the infield, that our ability to provide maintenance is included.
So also.
I mean, honestly, I want to interrupt. I mean, personally, the last bid I believe you came back with was like $125,000. Hold me if I'm incorrect. That was to the infield, the loom and everything. My personal opinion, I'd rather see you dig up the clay that's there and go back to regular dirt. And then we won't have water issues like we had before. And that might cost us 5,000 or 10,000 compared to
So Kevin, the
125.
one issue with removing all of the infield is we're gonna have to fill all the infield, so the price goes up. What the recommendation from STS was to mix different stuff in with the Dura-Edge, but that not to take it all out.
But my concern, Jay, is they come in, they do the work, they leave, and we're back to the same problem. And they're not held accountable to say, you come back, it's not fixed. I don't know if we have a clause in there to state if it's not working, then you need to come back and fix it.
So the one thing I will say about STS is that they come in and create partnerships with the people that they work with. They've been helping me over the phone with advice, and they're not in it to just, get the job done and then walk away. They're going to help. They actually said that they are going to help me come up with a maintenance program. They're going to help me come up with a care and control program for it. So they're in it. I hear what you're saying. I also want to get that Dura-Edge as much of it out of there as we can, but it is there. And we also don't have enough money to just rip it all out. So we have to kind of do the right thing, even if it's a little bit slower than we would like.
And
Jay-
honestly, one more thing I just wanted to add. We have high-tech lawnmowers that are down there at those fields that have bags on them. They have bags on the back of the lawnmowers.
We do not have.
You don't have bags on?
We have one lawnmower
Because
and
honestly, what I see when I go down there is they're cutting the grass and you have lumps of grass
Yes.
that sit down there. And Ryan could be an expert. That is gonna kill the grass that's underneath it if you don't bag it or pick it up.
absolutely.
You know what I mean? So.
I'm with
that's
you. And
another
if, and if you go on the soccer field side, you'll see that I haven't mowed in a while because I'm giving it plenty of time to,
Yeah, no, that looks good.
Jay, super quick, that, the quote that you have, did that also, just refresh, I don't have it in front of me. Did that also include work on the soccer field, which we
No.
no longer need, or that was all for the, for Manning
they
baseball?
actually, they quoted the soccer field, they quoted the baseball field separately. So there's,
Okay.
you had both quotes.
Okay.
They're just
They were
separate.
separate though.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Thank you.
I would like to say, follow up on what Mary was saying in terms of, Red Sox special, everybody's like, ooh, we have like Red Sox material. But if you notice, and if you ever go to Fenway, one drop of water falls out of the sky, they cover it.
Yeah, they have 25 people that come out and cover it.
Can't get
Oh.
wet. It
Jay.
can't get wet or it turns to,
Yeah.
hold on,
I'm sorry.
just 1 second. It can't get wet or it turns to cement. So I know that, in discussions with Colliers at one point in time, they talked about, when the experts come in, like Lori is referencing, you bring the experts in, they see what type of facility we have, what we're going to use it for, and they're not going to give you Red Sox material because we don't need it, to Mary's point, we're not at that level. So I think it's great that, that Lori's going to, and you are going to bring in the experts and we will, for one, will trust you, because I'm not speaking for the whole committee, just to do this right, because you were in the room when Colliers was there and Derek was talking about this whole thing. It's like, this is, you don't put a material like this in a town and how we're using, because we don't have the capacity, facilities, work, people to maintain it. Therefore, they would pick a different material. So I just wanted to add that in case people were all like up and, all excited about this Red Sox material like 3 or 4 years ago. It can't get wet or it turns to cement, and it did.
Thank you, Erica. Jay, before I make the motion, and we're gonna hear from you, Ray, in 1 second, and then we'll make a motion. Can you tell me the name of the contract that we're going to be entering into?
It's Sports Turf Associates. It's Sports Turf Specialists.
4-star?
STS, Sports Turf Specialists. Sports
Sports.
Turf Specialists.
Specialist, right?
Turf, TURF.
Say that 10 times.
TURF.
Sports turf specialist?
Yes, and they go by STS.
All right. Well, I'm gonna try to keep this moving now. So thank you, Jay. Again, I'm so happy to hear that part of that bid includes a maintenance plan. Ray?
Ray Gregolovich, 16 Woodland Road, and I don't want to belabor this anymore since we've been 2 hours talking on facilities tonight. But we purchased, there's a groomer somewhere. I don't know where it is, but there's a groomer that Situate Softball purchased and donated to the school down there. That's the equipment that you need. The problem is when it was purchased, A, the school never covered it, so I was probably rusting. And 2, you had the equipment down there and you never used it. So with respect to the $85,000 in bond money that was spent under the last bond campaign, you can do everything you want down there, but it has to be maintained. Because if we had maintained that baseball infield, we wouldn't be where we are today with it. And as we were driving by Manning today, I'm sure you looked at the softball field and it, which is supposed to be completely dirt, is a meadow now because they're not maintaining that field and keeping the weeds out of that. So you're going to have just as big of a problem on the softball field. It's a matter of spending the resources to maintain the fields. The more money we throw at it isn't going to solve the problem.
I think we've heard that. And I know that we have a position posted for a grounds person. How are we doing with that, Jay?
But it has to be a person who knows what they're doing and not just sitting on a lawnmower and riding around and cutting the grass.
I think that's why we haven't filled it yet.
Ray's going to hate my answer.
Go ahead, Jay.
I've had, the job is posted. It has just came down on Friday. No internal applicants. I had 4 external applicants, none of which have any experience in this type of,
Okay, so let's go back out to bid.
that's fine. That the longer we go without anyone in this position, the longer we go without anybody in this
So,
position.
Couple questions. Where did we advertise?
We post all our postings on School Spring.
So this may be something that we
Yes.
want to get out beyond School Spring. We're not necessarily looking for an educator,
I'm gonna-
right? School Spring is very specific to educators and while there's nobody out there, who's filling that position?
Right now, myself and the gentleman Kirby that left the job has been helping me keep the grass cut. It's
have
not
an
sports
assistant?
season yet, so. But like you heard from Sal, we're practicing soon.
Can I ask the committee to allow me to implement an interim plan until we get a qualified person?
Yeah, I don't want to just
To
hire.
hire and bring before you. So in the interim, if I could work with Jay to put together a
Yeah.
plan
Do we
around
need a vote?
care for the field.
Honestly, before, this has been my issue in the past. And I don't know what his bid is, the posting, but I'm assuming it has to do with groundskeeper / custodian.
No, we took the custodian out. It's
Okay,
only a
so it's just
groundskeeper.
groundskeeper.
Okay.
My other thing is, I don't know how much it is worth, the posting, but it's also something to look out for an outside contractor to do it, because honestly, we only need those fields taken care of maybe 5 months out of the year.
Well,
Instead of a 12 month period. We
I
don't
think
need
the
it.
alternative plan that she's thinking of we'll be looking at that. So hopefully maybe we'll learn even more from that when we look at the alternative plan. But I agree with the superintendent. Let's get the right person in. Ryan,
I'll be quick. Ryan Adams. You're talking about changing the infield material. What is the drainage like underneath? You guys need to drill a test hole, figure out what's going on under there, or whatever you put, dense or not dense, and how dense is the material you're going to put. It may not drain at all anyways. Just something to think about.
I think that was
Carol-
my first
Carolyn?
question.
I want to just backtrack. Do we need to make a motion and vote for Lori's request?
I'm gonna put it out for a vote
Yeah, okay.
anyway.
Thank you.
I'll be fast, promise. I'm just thinking through all of this. A suggestion or a question, budgetary wise, have we ever done a study to compare Situate and its facilities to a similar town to see what type of manpower is required to maintain everything that we have? Because the common denominator here is maintenance, maintenance, maintenance. And if we're working with 1.5 people, it sounds like, what are other towns that have similar fields, buildings, facilities? What do they have for a crew? And
It's a good
I think that's important. And I know, again, it comes down to money, but sometimes you're going to spend more money in the long run instead of just spending the money up front and getting the right people. And thinking ahead to Cato, once we do get it back, my fear is all of a sudden now here we are, and now we have this huge complex and we're still running on low
Yeah,
manpower.
it's-
So-
there's been some conversations. We actually had a meeting with Abby Groves. One thing that we didn't do though is we should look at like districts.
We do it for
and we
everything
should
else.
Do that and.
We do it for everything
but We
else.
are talking about trying to come up with some more joint resources for both the recreation as well as the
Right.
schools.
So just I'm curious to know what the
No, it's-
comparison is.
It's a great suggestion.
Madam Chair, I'm hoping we can move along.
Yeah, we're gonna
before
do
we
that
wither.
right now. I'd like to make a motion, to approve the contract with Sports Turf, specialty, for the repair and maintenance report, a plan, for the Manning baseball field. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a
Second.
Second, thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. And would you like to make a motion on the second piece of Manning?
Lori walked me through it, but I'd like to make a motion to authorize our superintendent to develop an interim plan until such time as the the groundskeeper can be hired.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. All right, thank you all for all your input and contribution. We are going to go back to the original order of our agenda,
And we're moving quick.
and we're going to
people.
be like lightning speed. Do I have,
I'd like to make a motion to pass the regular session minutes for July 6th, 2022.
do I have a motion to approve the entire consent agenda?
I make a motion to approve the entire consent agenda to include said minutes as well as the nutrition bills for fiscal year 23 in the amount of $27,472.61. The general fund bills for fiscal year 23 in the amount of $244,499.01. And the general fund bills for fiscal year 23 in the amount of $78,873.91.
Do I have a second?
Second,
All those in favor?
Aye.
Discussion? Yes.
Sorry, Colleen. I'm wondering, and I know, Stephanie, you explained with the new system, we're going to see more transparency. I can see that for sure, which brought to my attention that the Situate School Department is charged with paying the scholarships earned by our students from the Situate Scholarship Foundation, which, by the way, thank them very much for their generosity. But I'm just wondering how the scholarship foundation is a separate entity, like the boosters, I believe. I could be totally wrong, but I'm just wondering how we are the ones paying those scholarships to the universities.
I thought it was all through the Rhode Island Foundation though, too. Was it mostly everything brought through the Rhode Island Foundation?
I'm not sure.
So we receive the checks at the main office, which then get deposited into,
You know what? I'm trying to hear with the fan.
we receive the checks that come to the main office. They get deposited into our account and then we make that payment out to them at that time. It's one of the processes and procedures that we're looking at currently.
But thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, good. And the second question, I saw, that, do we have a bill for hotspots for about $1,400? Why is that for outside of the building? We're supposed to have internet throughout the building.
Oh, yeah.
I'm on and off. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that was due to when COVID was happening.
Yeah, we.
I wasn't here for that.
We provided hotspots to families who may have needed some internet access.
And it's still ongoing?
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, the next agenda item is the superintendent's report. Talk fast.
So my report is in your packet for your review. The only thing I'd like to cover with you here this evening is the changes and the employee updates. I want to ask you to welcome Heather O'Brien, who is the new payroll benefits accounting clerk in our office. Heather comes to us from the bus company, and she has really added a lot of spark to the office. She's quite talented, and we're very happy to have her. So also welcome Laura McGrath, the North Situate secretary. So if you go to North Situate, Laura will be at the desk and you can say hello to her. And the gentleman in the back, please join me in welcoming John McNeil, the new middle school principal, effective. Lori, I have to ask him to come on
John,
down.
you have
John.
to come and
down, John.
just talk to us a little bit about,
It will be easy, but we've been watching you all night, sitting in the back in your
can you
suit
just
and
tell
shirt
us a
and
little bit
tie.
about yourself?
I have a whole write-up, but I'll let John speak.
I really don't want to keep anyone here any longer than they have to be. But I'm absolutely totally excited and very grateful to be part of the Spartan community. I really appreciate you guys giving me this opportunity. I've always been 100% dedicated to both students and teachers and the community, and I'm looking forward to an application of that this coming year. Look forward to getting going tomorrow. Today's my first day. It was the best first day I've ever had.
We're thrilled to have you.
I think it's worth reading your bio because you have a reputation that precedes you.
Yeah, I will say John is coming to us as an assistant principal from the Lincoln School Department, where he was appointed in July 2018. And prior to that, he was the assistant principal in Cumberland for the Cumberland Middle School. And in both of those positions, he has managed to move those middle schools substantially up the food chain in RICAS test scores. So we've told him this is now his third middle school that he'll be charged with helping us move that along. He started his career as a social studies and history teacher at McCourt Middle School in Cumberland, and he attended PC, where he got his master's degree. He moved both Cumberland Middle School and Lincoln Middle School to top performing schools in this state. So we really look forward to working with him, and we welcome him to the admin team. So
John, I
welcome,
just have to
John.
tell you that when we were talking with you, your love for data is what made us really want to bring you here. So
It's a one-sided relationship because data has no feelings.
it's right. It speaks for itself, doesn't it?
It does.
Well, thank you and welcome. Does anybody
Thank you,
else have
guys.
anything to-
Thank all of you.
Go get that tie off. Painful to just look at you. Again, my notes are in your packet. We will be having our administrative retreat, the 15th and the 16th. We're gonna do some work with RIDE on the first day. The second day, we're gonna do some work with John Anderson, our attorney. We're also gonna take a look at the district strategic plan and take a look at some data. So those are the big chunks of the work that we will be doing. And as the committee and those in the office and the community at large know, we will be rewriting our district strategic plan. We are asking for volunteers. It will be a commitment of 3 meetings only, 2 hours long each meeting, and then we will have the plan written. So I'm asking you, please, if you can make that commitment to join us and do that work. It's really important that you do that. So get a hold of my office or go to the website, and a committee of 30 people will be chosen. We need to get a nice representative sample from the community. So thank you.
Thank you. Anybody have any questions about the superintendent's report? Okay, the Director of Administration and Finance report, quickly. Tim, can you put that PowerPoint back up for us?
Just a quick update on our new, you can go to the next slide. On our new FMIS system and some of the, I feel exciting things that we'll have going on to optimize our new system with current systems we have. With ADP, we're going to be utilizing a portion of that system that will incorporate the benefits, and we'll do a direct transfer to Tyler with both the salaries and the benefits. So it's going to give us up-to-date, accurate information. We're working with ADP and Tyler. We have some meetings set up with them, so to get everybody kind of on board and understand how that will work. But that is going to make things much easier. You can go to the next slide. I just wanted to give a quick picture of where we're at. This was just a slide to let you know what does come out of our budget for those who do not know. Next slide. Here is a complete picture of where we're at through July 31st. Oh, there was a complete picture. So We're about 27.3% of the budget used, and there's our expended total as of July 31st, and that's the breakdown for people who don't know what goes into property services budgeted, or professional and technical services. I kind of gave a small briefing of what comes out of that as far as UCOA, so that you could see. You just want to leave it up for a second. I won't break it all down for you, but we are at 27.3% utilized.
And keep in mind, the school year hasn't started yet. So it's the last quarter of the last year. We're in a hiatus here, and then the next 2 quarters.
Correct. Next slide. This is our revenue received through the 31st. Also with the tuition, just one notable on there is this is what's received year to date in FY April through June.
That's
Next
the
slide.
receiving children from CTE.
Next slide. This is just to touch base as of this point, what our projected CTE tuitions incoming and outgoing will be. At this moment, less students are leaving than anticipated. However, incoming tuition is less than anticipated. That can change. It could change in September. It can change throughout the year, but I just wanted to let you know where we are at this moment. And you can see at the bottom there, it's $31,399.50 of a shortfall. And that's just at this moment. September could come and that could change. But that is where we are at currently. That's the
Can-
last slide.
Steph, can you
Yeah.
do me a favor?
Mhm.
Can you go back to the financial town meeting presentation and double check? So that's the top part was, can you put that slide back up? So the top part was the outgoing students, or was that the revenue?
Which slide?
Can you get that slide back up? Thank you.
So that is outgoing tuition. The bottom is incoming.
Okay. And can you just blow up that slide a little so I can see the numbers at the bottom? So we have our outgoing, we actually are, and I know that this is still fluid, but we actually have more students going out.
Yes, less students are leaving than anticipated. So we,
So is that a
Actually-
negative 169 or is that a
no,
positive?
that's a positive. So we
Oh, okay,
over
so that's a
budgeted.
surplus.
Yeah.
But the incoming was overstated. So we're off by a little.
Right.
Okay, all right.
We discussed before, we may have been a little overzealous in thinking
Correct.
live and learn, right? But so this is a wonderful piece that even though we were overzealous on that side, we're finding some savings on it.
And I would like to caution the committee, these numbers are really quite fluid
Yeah.
because we haven't done our rollover yet. And we can't double check with the ride numbers because the rollover isn't done yet. And kids will get notified by districts after school starts. It's not supposed to happen that way, but it always does. So these numbers are our most fluid numbers in that whole budget process.
That's all I had for today. Does anyone have any
Okay.
questions?
Question, not about specific numbers. I know we've spoken about it a couple of meetings ago. How is the lift to Tyler going? I keep saying that it's gonna be so great. It's gonna be so great. Like, and I know it is, but I know there's a lot of, are you moving along? Are you?
So our current fiscal year is completely in besides 5%, and that should be going in this week. So we are in an excellent shape for this current year.
It's
The lift is last year.
You're still trying to get. okay.
Right, because there wasn't UCOA used and because of the database, you know, that is a extremely heavy lift and everyone in that office is working so hard every moment.
But the good news is, once it's done, you'll never have to do it again, right? Like
Thank
it's a
God.
one and done, like, no.
Yes.
But please, I just know that we had spoken about it a couple school committee meetings ago, and you're trying to keep up with what's present, which is wonderful.
Exactly. And making
Where do
sure
you
that's
find-
perfect.
Yeah.
Stephanie, do you think you're going to be okay? We're going to be okay for the audit?
I was with the auditor all day today.
Okay.
And we are working together to do whatever it takes to try to make sure everything goes smoothly and timely.
I really appreciate all the
Mm.
work you're doing,
Thank
Steph.
you.
Thank you so much.
Were you looking for volunteers to help? Weren't you looking for volunteers to help input?
Yes, lots of help.
Is that a yes or a no?
Oh, sorry, I thought you said.
Volunteers, do you want to?
Yes, I'd love you to come in anytime, please.
You don't want me, but I bet there's other, there's probably other people in the community that might be able to come and help.
Problem is, you're going to know Ucoa.
Yeah.
That's the problem.
Yep.
The next item on the agenda is public comment. I know we've tried to get
It's
some of the
dwindling
comments
down.
in as possible, as much as possible. Ryan, I don't know if you want to come back up. I know that you've had some concerns, Suzanne.
I do. Everybody can hear me? It's Ryan Adams at 5 Adams Way. I've got some concerns with the watering of Manning Field. It's starting to affect not only my home, but the entire neighborhood, which is also eventually going to affect your wells that you're going to use for your student population, if I had to guess. What happened was every other day you're watering, beginning of July, I noticed a drop in pressure in my water system at home. Doing some research and stuff, it comes from what's called high capacity wells and the fact that the water is not being replenished by rain. Can't do anything about the rain, but we can do something about the use of the high capacity wells. Then you went to every day, it got worse. You resodded your field. You're running the whole field once a day. Then you're running the soccer field another 3 times a day, which is 6 zones, 4 heads at 22 minutes a zone. It's not 5 minutes. It runs all afternoon. It ran me dry. I haven't done any outside watering in weeks and weeks. It ran me dry. My static water pressure was way high in my well 9 years ago when I replaced my pump, and it's way down below the 300-foot mark now. So I'm hoping for some assistance, not only just for me, but the entire neighborhood, to either slow the water down, or I'd really love it to just be shut off. Because I get that it's essential in some people's eyes because sports are essential, but it's not essential watering for life. We're watering the grass.
So, it certainly is alarming to run out of water. It's alarming. I don't know enough about wells other than what the fellow was saying earlier that, like, I don't know how our wells are affecting our neighbors, but I know that the person that we're talking to certainly wanted to make sure that our wells were not doing that. I don't know if we want, and you're talking about the Manning Field watering that's affecting,
I think it's both fields.
you do think it's
I'm
both?
in the middle. Well, I think it's more than just you folks. I think it's the housing too, but they need it for life.
Right.
They need to
Yeah,
survive.
right. That's.
What happens with a high capacity well, which is what these irrigation wells are, is they take from the domestic wells because they have to pull water further and further out as you use more and more of it from the system in the bedrock. And the system in the bedrock in Situate, even though we have the Situate Reservoir, is lousy.
I
There's no
wish-
other way to describe it.
I wish you were, you brought this up when that other fellow was here, just to,
Well, we
to
did a
talk
little
and-
bit, I think, right?
One of the
Yeah, a little
things,
bit.
Ryan, one of the things that he said that caught my attention, because I was actually questioning him, I don't know if you've noticed, to see if we could get some answers about potentially what was happening, to the area homes. And one thing that caught my attention, and I don't know about bedrocks, but Manning Field is down from your house. And so I'm wondering.
It is on the surface, but which way does the bedrock tilt underneath? Nobody knows.
But one of the things he said is that typically when something is, if it was next door, if it was, you know what I mean? And then he said if it was 1,000 or 2,000 feet away, it shouldn't have any impact.
Because he's talking about your domestic wells, not your high impact irrigation well. They're different.
Okay. Thank you for clarifying that to me.
A question I have, and so the irrigation at Manning Fields, is that is done from a separate well?
Yeah.
So and I'm just asking, I don't
Yeah.
know, is that a high volume well? So it's not the
It's not.
same well that or type of well that's here, that would be like that and forgive me, I'm ignorant to a lot of.
Colleen, if you remember when we spent the money under the bond, we put in a high yield well down there so that it would be able to water the field. So it is pulling all the water out of the aquifer. And since we haven't had any rain, it's like taking a sponge and squeezing every drop of it. And poor Mr. Adams isn't getting any water.
So we do have, so I'm getting conflicting answers here. So,
Right.
and maybe that where's some of the problem lies. If there is a high volume well down there.
But
It's-
the problem is without the rain,
I get it. The rain is, this is.
so it's pulling every available drop of H2O out of the ground. So as it rains less and less, it's pulling further and further afield to the point where it's affecting a wider area.
Do we know if we have any other homeowners that have their wells? How many do you know of?
I know of at least a couple that are having pressure issues. I was hoping they were gonna be here tonight, but I'm standing alone, I guess.
Yeah.
The gentleman that you spoke to tonight, Bob from, is it Northeast? Do you think he's able, I mean, he seems he wants to help, he wants to figure out, but I mean, you still need water, right?
Maybe
So
we should have him do an
what can
analysis.
he do for you? It's my, like, I don't
The
know.
test is gonna tell an awful lot of the story with the domestic wells anyways. I'm glad that he's gonna try and stick my well. Might not happen next week because I'm not gonna be home. But
All right, so we can water a lot next week? Does that mean, no? I'm just-
well, it's gonna make the test
Yeah, I
just
get it.
like if they're not running it every well in the neighborhood,
Right.
he's gonna stick my well and the test isn't gonna be true because we're not gonna be home using the water.
Right.
I don't know how the housing gets away with 1,700 gallons a day. I have a water filter system that calculates my gallonage every day and you can go back into a history. And I'm 700 or 800, 900 gallons, which is a
Do you
typical
have water now,
four-person
Ryan?
family. I
How many
do,
people
but
at
we're doing a load of laundry, waiting, taking a shower, waiting.
You're being
That's my kids.
conservative.
I give
Yeah,
them
you're
5 minutes and I
conserving.
kick them out of the shower.
Yeah.
They're in love with me. They really are.
So what you just said is news to me. I don't really understand that. Jay, is that your understanding that it's that kind of a well that just draws the water from the bedrock from 50 miles away or whatever? I don't know. Yeah, I think for me, I would like to have the guy come back and let us.
Unfortunately, Ray informed me on what kind of well I even had down there.
Okay.
I communicate with Northeast Water all the time, and I have no problem asking him
Can
any
you
of those
call
questions.
Bob and find out on behalf of our, these parents here tonight.
'Cause
Ask
he-
him if he can give us an assessment or an opinion at least on what he thinks is happening.
Northeast Water is not telling you things they're not going to do. He is definitely going to communicate with all of the taxpayers in that general area, and they're very, very transparent.
But that's just for the testing.
Yep, but they're going to communicate with them all the things that are happening that could affect them.
But my question is there any way that he can weigh in on what the impact of that high intensity well is, the impact the high intensity well at Manning is having on surrounding water
He-
systems?
I'm guessing he's only going to be able to speculate because he hasn't run any tests on any of those, so he doesn't.
Can you just
It's
ask us?
absolutely,
so
I can
just-
absolutely ask.
Can you just
To at least
ask him?
test your well, maybe? Is that something he's able to?
Not, it's not even that, just ask him theoretically. Is it possible that like Ray said, that it's drawing so much that it's even going up, it's hitting the bedrock that's even hitting houses up the hill?
I can ask Bob.
Thank you, Jay.
The problem that the district is faced with right now is they're trying to water new sod to make it take. So they're running the water constantly during a time where you're not getting natural rain to refill the waterbed. That's the problem. It's
No, I
it-
get
under
that,
nor-
Ray.
under normal circumstances, if you didn't have new sod down, you would be watering maybe once every other day and Mr. Adams wouldn't be experiencing the problem, but you have the combination of over water use down there and no rain to supplement the
Well, I
fact
want
that
to
it's being
take, it-
sucked out.
I do want to take issue with why do you think that's over water use? Because he's talking to people that are telling him exactly how much to
No,
water.
I'm not
and
saying
when.
I'm not saying it's over what at this time of the year when you don't have rain.
Oh, we're using
you-
more water.
You're
Yeah,
you're using the right, you're doing the
We
right
should be
thing,
using
except
less.
that you don't have a water source
It's like
that's
the perfect
replenishing
storm right
the
now.
use
Yeah.
of the
Like,
water.
I
work
just
against
want to
you, but-
follow up with this family. If you could just make that call to the water experts and let's see what they're saying. And hopefully, Ryan, we can get back to you with an answer.
And in the meantime, you know, in the spring and the fall, yes, you got to water during the day to eliminate root rot and mold on your field. We don't have to worry about root rot and mold on
I-
the field. It's hot. There's not a lot of humidity. You're losing, I don't know what the percentage is, but it's high. The amount of water you're putting on your field to evaporation, it's not helping you. That's why the edges of your sod are dying and not adhering to the
Yeah.
ground.
I do want to let you
You
know. that
really need to
this-
switch
this-
it to at night during the summer and then September, October,
Switch it back.
switch it back to during the day, but I think the damage is already done, and I think we need to start thinking about shutting it off, at least slowing it down. I think the
This is
damage
like-
underground is done.
What's done at night? Lori, it's not done at night?
It is done at night, but the experts have
Jay brought the sod experts in and they have laid sod currently down at URI. They stood on Manning Field. They saw the sod we put down. They told him exactly when to water it, for how long and what frequency. And that is what we're following.
and
I will say though, one thing, and I think it's already occurred, is we need to stop watering the baseball field and the softball field
Right.
for now, because
just,
honestly,
Ryan,
sod-
just so you know, she did
the
stop
roots
the
are already
watering.
there, that they're not, it's not gonna affect that.
I-
It's just that
I
Manning
agree.
where
We
it's-
were watering the baseball field and the softball field once a day. I've asked Jay to stop that.
And he did. It didn't run this morning.
I understand.
The field, the soccer field ran this morning, but that did not run this morning.
Any other public comment? Thank you.
Thank
We'll
you.
get back to you on that.
Suzanne
Hi,
Adams again.
Suzanne.
Hi. So I would just love to ask if we could get multiple expert opinions because I've done a lot of research and I know
Bring your
Carolyn,
mic down.
sorry, Carolyn, I know I sent you some information last night of the research I've done. And it's pretty clear that excessive usage, not overusage, excessive usage, which is where we're at right now with the field watering, because there's a need. It's bad timing. It's a perfect storm.
Right.
And it was probably not the best of choices to do it in an extreme drought. So I've looked at sites, even the Rhode Island water site says that in a drought situation like we're in right now, golf courses start conserving water. We're doing the exact opposite. We've increased our water usage substantially in the
Yeah.
school department. I understand the need. My kids play sports. I played sports in this school.
No, you heard tonight the parents and how
Yeah,
important it is
But
to
I played
them.
sports in the school growing up as well. So I am not against sports. I just don't think that we should put sports over life.
It's very true. And you know, I do want to thank both you and your husband. You've had a couple of problems, one with the runoff of the new field and now this, and you've handled yourself very graciously and politely. And I do really appreciate that. And
And
we're going
I
to try
really
to get the
appreciate-
experts
Yeah.
to come back and see if we can
Yeah.
get some answers for you and help us be better informed on what we can do to try to balance this thing better.
Yeah, and I think they just need to understand the full scope. Like, I understand he got a small piece of what was happening tonight. I don't know that he was aware of the new watering that's happening down the street, as well as what we're trying to do up here at the school. So I think he needs a full picture before he can truly make a true assessment. Which would just be my thought. But I do want to thank you as well for reaching out to me and my husband last night. I
You're
do
welcome.
appreciate that. We did make several phone calls over the weekend and didn't get any responses. So I really appreciate you reaching out.
No
Thank you for
problem,
that.
Suzanne. Thank you again.
Certainly needing water for drinking is more important than watering grass. I mean, living in Situate, we all have wells. I think we can appreciate that.
Hi, hi Jody.
Hi, Dina.
Dina,
Dina Lindy, 136 Gentry Way. And I know you talked about Cato real quick earlier and I walked in late, but are we going to find something out next week? Is that what was said?
no, we just wanted to let you know, or the community to know that, the process of the mediation between the parties is starting. And so hopefully, once that starts, we'll get a decision pretty quickly, and then we can start really talking to people about what the outcome is.
Mediation is starting Thursday. correct?
Starting Thursday. So
Okay.
it's just giving, we're
First
just
step in
giving
the
you the,
legal
it's
process.
just the first step in the legal process.
Okay, because I had thought that at the meeting 2 months ago, you had said in 60 days, there would be an update on that.
Well, what I think what there was
Mediation
explained
would
to us.
Start within 60 days was what we had said.
And that
That
there
was-
would be an update.
We can't give an update until the mediation goes.
We don't
through.
have an
Like,
update.
Oh,
on
I
the
think that
legal
was,
process.
yeah, that might have been a little misleading
Yeah.
to
No,
us,
we said
thinking that
that-
we were going to have both
No.
an update.
No. so
Okay,
There should, if it was, when the attorney was here, we have, and I believe the law or the procedures indicate that once you filed for mediation, it has to be scheduled to begin within 60 days. So at no point did it was that this would be resolved within 60
no, I'm not looking for a resolution. I knew it's not going to be resolved for years. I get that.
No. I
But
don't
I'm
think
just
so.
thinking that you had said there was going to be an update, and saying that you started mitigation doesn't really sound like an update. It's,
No,
but
mediation. So what I said was mediation began. Mediation, which is where the parties come
Yep.
together. That is the first step prior to going to any form of litigation as far as going to the courts. We
Right.
have to go through mediation first.
so
That is starting on Thursday.
okay, so I guess when is our next update? Actual update? Does anyone
After
have,
the
and it's
media-
okay if you don't know, I'm just,
No.
we
No,
just,
we
you
don't.
know,
Well,
we're
that's
waiting.
okay. We're doing everything we can. I know the next update, we're going into executive session on August 24th with a joint session with the town council to give them a complete briefing on what's happening to date now that the mediation has begun.
Okay,
And once we get through the mediation, which I think the mediation is not going to take years. If they
Let's hope
can't
not.
come to an agreement, then it goes to an arbitrator. And then a decision is made.
At a
So,
minimum, I would say by our next school committee meeting, we should at least have an update. Our council's in here right now. But, and again, he won't be able to give us a specific date. I don't know.
so give
how
us
long
an update on
mediation can
on
take.
where we are with
It
the
may be
mediation.
done by the next school committee meeting, and if not, mediation, I don't
It'll-
think that mediation will go on beyond 60 or 90 days. I don't know that, but I think we should
Okay.
get that definitive answer out to the public. by the
okay.
next school
And you
committee.
guys will do that even when there's not meetings? Let us know what's going on, or just at meetings? Just so
No,
we all know.
We could do an update, but I'm saying
No.
we don't have, we need to know how long the mediation process goes. If John was here, he could not give us an exact.
I know, I thought it
date.
was weird that he wasn't here.
Again, he has other districts that we'll find that answer out, but the mediation is beginning on Thursday.
He actually just asked us in executive session to report out that mediation has begun.
Okay,
And I think
And
what
that
we
was
can
it.
do at the next meeting, maybe he can give us a little bit of background on mediation.
oh,
and
yeah, I
how
don't think we
long it
need
takes.
background on that. I think we just want to know what
We
is going to
can't-
happen.
We don't have.
So, okay, I just thought I was expecting an update today, and I guess I was wrong. So, all right, thank you.
Carolyn, you said we have a joint meeting with the town council?
Yes, on August 24th.
Am I the only one that did not know about that?
I think it was just decided last week. We were calling their attorney and it just got decided like on Friday. So,
I know we had gotten a text about dates, but that was last week, I think. It was supposed to be something to do last week, but then they never, I think Peggy Long had set something up before,
Right.
but then that was the last I knew.
right. So I think it's still being decided, but I think it's going to end up being the 24th.
Okay, so I shouldn't put it in my calendar yet.
Are we gonna Patty, what's your understanding of confirming that date with the town council? Okay. Okay. Can
I
you,
didn't know about it either.
can you reach out and just confirm that with, the president of the town council that that's what's gonna happen? Because we have to also line up Colliers, we have to line up the attorneys. So it's just very preliminary. I would hold it as a hold right now, but I think it's like, it's pretty it would probably be, when do they typically have executive session? At 6 o'clock? 6 o'clock on the 24th. And if that's the case, can you let John know? And yeah. I think John might want to bring in the new attorney.
You're aware that 24th is a Wednesday, right?
I'm sorry, the 25th. Sorry, the 25th. The heat, I'm getting
I
heat
know.
stroke.
So can I just quickly confirm what the plan is with watering on the field? I think I heard that we're going to continue to water the soccer field that has the new sod, but that we are not going to water the baseball or softball
Right,
fields
right now we
until the
stopped
time
that
that the sod
watering.
is set and that watering ceases.
Correct.
Okay, thank you for confirming.
Jay, are you have any plans, Jay, to bring the people that came down to look at it? There any plans for them to come back and check it for us and maybe make some adjustments to that?
Well, I want to make sure that I say that, again, these are people that we hired. They're doing it as a professional courtesy. The town DPW and my department actually put the sod down. These are people that I just have relationships with that came down to assist, who have done work for us before.
Okay.
I will definitely be I've been sending him daily pictures so that he can.
Okay, fantastic. As long as they're keeping us close
It's like
to,
a new baby.
close to the.
It is like a new baby. And if there's ever a meeting where you don't see me standing here, you know that the sod didn't make it.
Okay,
You didn't even laugh, Carolyn. That was funny.
I know. Sorry. I just remembered that we might have some people on Zoom that may want to provide, or at home that may want to offer or say something. There is a hand raised, so Tim, can you manage that for us? Nick, I'm sorry, I keep calling him Tim. Nick, can you, bring up the participants at home and can you show the participants at home? And
So if you are watching at home and you have any public comment, you can hit the raise your hand button.
there is a hand raised, if you could. I know, can you show the people under the participants? There we go.
Do you want to? Yeah, here they are. We don't have any hands raised.
No, I think it's just the raise hand button that you're sitting for.
Nobody's got a hand raised, okay. All right. So Nick, is there anyone at home?
Nope.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so we're going to continue on to finish our new business. The discussion action vote on the elementary handbook. Do we have any discussions on that?
I do. Is there someone here that's going to present on it?
Hi, Erica. I didn't hear the question.
I wasn't sure if you were gonna show it up on the screen, but I was zoning in on the policies within this handbook, being on the policy committee. The discipline policy was last written in 2000. I was wondering if you had any problems with it. Is it, because it looks like it needs a fresh look. I was wondering how it's working because it's very old.
It does need updating, but as far as whether or not it's working at the elementary level, we're not having any issues.
Thank you for that.
And the only changes to that I should state is from last year's handbook that you approved. The only difference is we've updated the principles and updated the dates for trimesters and parent conferences and things like that. Other than that content, it's the same exact one as last year.
But I'm on the policy committee now, so that's changed. So I have to ask you about all the policies. Sorry. The next one is the negative balance policy that was revised in 2019. So that's fairly new. But I know it states that the director of finance sends monthly calls with follow-up written correspondences for a family that has a debt over $75 or more. Who is responsible for sending automated emails and phone calls, reminders on a weekly basis for balances under 75? Is that
That-
also Stephanie?
Nope, that's the responsibility of Chartwell's.
Bus transportation procedure, which is not a policy. So it says here the bus driver reports chronic misbehavior or serious incidents to the building principal. And again, I'm wondering how that's working, because you would think if something is chronic or serious, for example, the second offense, the parent is brought into it, but I'm surprised the parent isn't brought into it for a chronic or serious incident. Is this working well as
It's
well?
working well. First student uses an app called First Acts. So what that is they, previous to using that, they would just tell the principals when there was an issue, but now the drivers work with the supervisor at the bus yard to enter the infractions in First Acts in that platform. And so from that platform, we address the issue and we automatically have the option of sending those reports directly to parents.
Oh, okay.
It's linked up with Power School.
Thank you. That makes me feel better. So I assume the attendance policy is working. Again, that was updated 2016. In your handbook, just a suggestion. I know that you state, and I think the links are just fabulous. So if when a parent is reading through this, they don't have to go onto the school website and then click on 3 different buttons to find it. It's great that they just click right on it.
Thank you.
That is fantastic. I know that therefore I know you can click on the statewide bullying policy, but you didn't reference a policy number in the handbook. It's just like a little, most of the other policies, you say policy number 8035 with a live link, but it might be best if you continue to list all the policy numbers, not
Okay.
just the names. Just
Is
like-
it linking but the individual
It links.
policy links? Okay, so it's just a matter.
Actually, I don't know, because when I pressed on it, it wouldn't let me go through. Maybe
Okay,
because of the form that it was sent to me on in my packet.
I'll check on that link tomorrow and then I'll just add the 4-digit policy number to that. Okay, I'll do that tomorrow.
Just to make it easier.
And it should be consistent. So thank you for pointing that out. I'll add that.
And just to make it easier for the parents.
Sure.
Especially in case it doesn't work, then they can do what I did, was then I went into the website
Correct.
and found it through that way.
Yeah, we don't want them to have to go that far.
There's a few of them in there, and the prevention and crisis intervention, physical restraint for safety, again, written in 2002. If you feel that that's something that the policy committee should kind of like bump up to more of a priority, let me know. It seems like a pretty important policy. It calls for annual training of all school staff.
All still relevant and all still happening of the
Excellent.
appropriate staff. Yep. So we're all the ones who are doing the de-escalation and the restraint are all trained annually. And that's all outlined there.
It also talks about any staff member that's hired after the first of school. This can be part of the orientation. I know, Lori, we talked about orientation. So that's something that I want to make sure that that's happening as well.
Yeah, so at orientation, there is a PowerPoint that highlights all the important policies that all teachers need to be aware of, and they sign off on those, that they understand them. And then anyone hired after that, we use the same PowerPoint to go over those with any new staff members.
That's great. And my only other suggestion, it's just a suggestion, is to make sure people know where to find all the rest of the policies.
Okay.
It's just a thought. Even though it's clear, although you did say you are going to redo the website,
Mhm.
it's just nice to say, all the policies are located in thus and such location. And the rest of these are just great live. links.
Okay,
But
I
just-
can add that to that too. And also just to let you know that this goes home electronically to all families on the first day of school. And then a paper copy of the signature page goes home, that last page of that handbook, and the parents sign off on that. But until we get that back, they're still working under the previous handbook. So just to let you know that there's no lapse in that.
We can do it with a digital signature.
you.
Like, I'm just thinking to streamline it for like the papers coming home. Do you know what I mean? I don't know.
At the elementary level, this works really
Just
well.
easier. Gotcha.
We apparent, the elementary parent, and we've talked about this. There's such differentiation that goes on between the levels. Elementary parents are great. They go through especially the first day of school, like
Yeah.
everything comes back right away. So it's not an issue.
The papers.
But we're just sending home that one paper. We used to send home the
Yeah,
entire
yeah, yeah,
handbook,
That's right.
but we need that signature on file for legal purposes.
Thank you, Dana.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? All set?
No,
Thanks.
I have a motion to approve the elementary handbook.
so moved.
Do I have a second? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, before I ask to move forward on the new business 5 and 6, it's late, it's hot. I don't mind, I'll stay, but is there any thoughts about moving it to the September agenda?
So I guess I have no issue moving it. I have no issue staying. I'm almost melted now. What's the difference? right?
I just
But I'm
wanted to
just-
put
I'm
that out to the school
What are we
committee.
looking at per time? I mean, this is a very comprehensive report, which was kids count. Is there anything?
I
we-
just don't want to,
But I just want to know if it's another 5 minutes, let's be done with it, right? But do we have, Laura, give us your best speculation. What are we looking at? All right, we're gonna move that along. But
does anybody else have any thoughts?
is us not hearing either of those two things tonight going to
That's why I'm off.
prolong anything for anybody? Like, I know we probably have to pass the elementary. Do we need to hear either of these two things tonight?
No, I would simply acknowledge the fact that Dana was here for that report.
So let's hear it.
And Dana, do you want to do yours? How long do you need?
You have a copy of the packet already.
All right, you wanna?
Yeah, let's do
Let-
Dana's.
Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely.
The kids count might actually dovetail better when we get the data scores.
Yeah, I actually think it's a good idea to hang on to that when our new RICAS scores are released.
Which will probably be the
And we can
October data,
dovetail
but
it
it's
with
good
this.
because you can bring all the other data in. Did you see the demographic data in that
Yes.
book? It's crazy. It's good. Hi, Dana.
Hi, so you have a copy of my report in your packet. So I don't know if Nick can get that up on the screen, maybe. Do you have access to that?
Did someone email? Can someone email it to me?
What? I didn't hear that.
Actually, if you can see it in your packet, I can just go over it with you if you have, it's in your packet. It should be linked.
I have it.
Did you find it? Okay, so I'll just start. I'm going to quickly just go over. I was asked at the last meeting to provide an update on ESSER. So I'm just going to give a quick overview, let you know that ESSER 1 is completely expended. It's in your report that we've spent that on Chromebooks during COVID. ESSER 2, we were allotted 769,689. That has to be expended by September of 23. And the highlights of that funding included the Director of Curriculum, my salary for 6 months, as well as funds for extended learning to address gap closure, transportation for summer programming last year and this year, some HVAC repairs, curriculum development, and different technology for the lower grades to align with our STEAM And that was in conjunction with Shannon Donovan.
What's the balance of ESER two?
I don't have that information. I've asked Director of Finance, and we're still working with Tyler to load those numbers into Tyler because they weren't loaded into the previous system. Okay, moving on to ESER three, we were awarded 1.6 million, around $1,668,920. We have to have that expended by September of 24. That covers my salary for 2 years. So this position will have a sunset at the end of that school year, but prior to 24. That we built some strong capacity at the building level to develop our teacher leaders and continue that work around MTSS. So we have leaders in every building. We're bringing back grade level leaders to the elementary schools. And a large sum of our money was spent on Right to Read Act and to be in compliance with the Right to Read Act. Also, we're also allotting to replace our first edition Chromebooks that were end of life. So we need to replace a bulk of those. And then also covering gap closure program platforms at the elementary and middle. I added another year of 5 leadership sessions with American Reading Company because we do have 3 new principals that I was not expecting when we wrote that. So we needed to include that. Also, we earmarked some funds that we have not spent yet for high quality elementary science curriculum once RIDE puts out some options and in alignment with ed reports. We're trying to get some we're trying to get choices. So we're not just choosing one to explore. Also a K-8 framework. We want to continue that. And then the other piece is the work that we have lined up for with CLE, the Center of Leadership and Ed Equity, excuse me. That will cover our strategic planning initiative that Superintendent Andrews is spearheading, along with improvement cycles and aligning it with improvement science, which is the initiative I'm spearheading with our administrators in year 1 and then our teacher leaders in year 2. And then finally on your report, it's an update on gap recovery. The committee's been asking about that. So last summer, at the elementary level, we had 78 students participate, and they were bused from North Situate over to Hope Pond, and staffing wasn't an issue, so it was open to everyone. Then during the school year, we had 91 students participate in after-school programs for gap closure. 67 of those kids were elementary and 24 at the high school. I recognize there were none at the middle school, and we're working to address that. And then this summer, due to staffing shortages, we opened the program only to students that were reading at the at-risk or emergency levels, according to American Reading Company's formative assessment tool. And so with that, we have 34 students, and we're using Hope School for that. And then we have our teacher leader and a paraprofessional walking students down to Hope Pond, because we're working in conjunction with the Situate Rec Department. I'm sure Mary sees them walking by every day.
Every day.
Every Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, all in a little line. So they're
My
very
dog
safe.
lets me know when they're coming.
Yes, they're coming. So, so that's been going on there. And then a credit recovery, just an update on our credit recovery. We had 12 students at the middle school, 10 passed, and we have 14 students at the high school and 13 passed. And that update is from Chris Bagley, and he's our summer recovery credit coordinator.
So Dana, you acknowledge the piece that I know Carolyn's probably going to jump over, so I'm going to get to it first, but you already brought it up. It's very disheartening to see in the gap recovery that 91 students, 67 at the elementary and 24 at the high school. We just missed the biggest chunk of kids that
Mhm.
need our help.
Yeah, I agree.
We can't
and-
go back, we can go forward.
No, we can't. You're right. And I'm not gonna go
Yeah.
on tonight because it's a long night. It's warm, but I watched the last meeting and you were spot on, Colleen, when you said that outreach needs to be differentiated, particularly for that middle school. They're like the lost group there because elementary, they follow lock and step with what their families want. High school, they see the end game, but that middle group,
They are the, and
It's-
they
it's-
need our, like, I'm like scrunching my water bottle now, like,
I
they
know.
need us more than anybody. almost.
Yep,
It's,
and
that's the, and again, it's not to, it's frustrating, but it's a place to move from, like, to see
Yep.
that zero, like, yeah, that's,
I know. So, I look forward to hearing John's ideas on how
Yeah.
to increase engagement with the students. We have busing, after school busing, so transportation's not an issue. Sometimes sports get in the way, but again, it's only an hour and I know my kids have played sports and every
if we're
coach will,
if we're getting them at the elementary school and we're getting them at the high school,
right.
there is no, and I know it's a different little beast that
Mhm.
they are, and I had them, I can call
Yeah.
them that, right? But
I
there's a
agree.
way to get them with the proper.
Yep, I acknowledge it's something that we definitely need to work on and I need to work more closely
Yep.
with the staff at that middle school.
Yep.
And as far as sports go, because that's what I hear, that they have sports after school. Both my kids played sports and every coach will say school comes first, your student athletes.
Absolutely.
So I know they'll be able to
Yeah.
stay. So it's just a matter of trying to hook them in and figuring
Because
out
those
what's
kids that
going
are
to do
at
it.
most at risk, they're not going to be playing sports if
Yeah.
their grades aren't in the right place.
Correct.
So
Exactly.
there's a way around.
Yep, I
that.
acknowledge it, Colleen. I
Yeah.
do. So we'll get there.
We'll
And
get
we're anxious to analyze the RICAS, once we get our test scores, our cut scores from RIDE. Not a whole lot we can do with that right now. We can kind of spitball around what we think based on raw scores, but we don't have cut scores yet. We won't have those until Massachusetts releases theirs. Okay,
One of the things that prompted me to ask the superintendent to get the kids count fact book was the data that was presented for our middle school math. 14% proficiency
for last year.
last year.
Yeah.
And how many people presented with gaps? Nobody? What happened in the summer? It's so disheartening. I am so hopeful with this new principal that he can help solve our problem. But a 14% proficiency in our middle school for mathematics, and no one is presenting for remediation, gap closing. There's a communication flaw. Somebody's got to be raising the flags to these parents.
I think
and
that's a
letting them
building, a
understand how
building issue,
dire
of,
this
building
is.
leadership. I think we're gonna see, hopefully some plans in place shortly. Once I start working with, Amanda and John on that. So we'll get back to you.
Well, guess what? There's only one place to go, and that's up from there. So I'm really hoping that the new scores that are coming through, we're gonna see some improvements on that, but.
But
my
I think it
heart
would,
broke.
just to jump on that too, Carolyn, and again, I want to move forward, not back. I hope we'll never, ever be in this situation again, where we're seeing zero gap closures at a certain level of whether it be middle school, high school, we should never have this, right?
Exactly. Exactly.
Okay.
Thank you,
Dana,
Dana.
you mentioned staffing challenges to run the
Mhm.
programs. So at the middle level, was it a no student applied or was it you didn't have the staff to run it situation? Or both?
There was a couple of different things going on with that.
You don't
So-
need to, go into detail.
Yeah, no, I mean, for the, I had the same presentation with all the building principals when I came on board in February, like mid-February, I met with everybody, went over the ESSER. Shannon Donovan and I laid out how much money was available and what the opportunities were. Elementary, it worked really quickly. We ran similar programs at Hope School with Title I. So it was really easy just to replicate that at the elementary level. And the summer program, Courtney and I started that last summer, so that was really easy to replicate. High school, I think secondary is the place where we need to differentiate. Like Colleen said, I've got to work on what outreach looks like at the secondary level. And that's something that I'm going to have to work on. The money, we have the funds.
That's the worst part, I think.
Right.
That's-
So, and that's, we have the
so many
funds.
years we've been trying,
Right.
right? We've actually, I don't know, and I can particularly hear some middle school teachers saying, we need this, we need,
Yeah.
it's here now. How do we get? from
And
there?"
I don't know if there would be staff shortages, Mary. I know it was difficult. In some places at the elementary level to get the after school staff, teachers are burnt out too.
Right.
Coming out of COVID was like, that was tough. And then getting everyone to try to build that culture back up again. It's hard to ask them to stay, another hour or so after. So I can't speak to why. I can only speak to what we can do moving forward.
Mhm.
I think that we can do more. It's just a matter of how we're going to do that and engage the population.
And
All I
then-
know of that,
And then I look at the ESSER funds, and we've been blessed to have them and utilize them for a lot of things that we probably wouldn't have right now.
Right.
First and foremost was going so quickly to one-to-one. That was really a big step forward for
Mhm.
us. So, you can get used to having money. And I look in particular at ESSER 3. And love you, no offense, Dana, but your position, MTSS leaders, grade level leaders, are these things down the road, once these funds are depleted, is there a sense that they're now going to be part of the regular budget?
Well,
There'll be an impact.
Oh, so certainly. So I'm well aware that my position is funded through, June 30th of 24, well aware. My goal is to build capacity around me and build up through partnerships with American Reading Company, our math publishers, and CLE to build the capacity of the building administrators and our teacher leaders and grow this work. So it grows when this position is eliminated through ESSER. That's the first piece. The other piece is the MTSS can go back into consolidated. So that can go under a grant. That's where we had it before.
Okay.
And the other piece is the grade level leaders.
Yeah.
If there's money in consolidated, it could go into that, or it could go into local. Those two are very small amounts of money in the big picture. You get a lot of bang for your buck when you're looking at $1,000 stipend. The amount of work that those people do, it's really instrumental, and it gives the teachers a voice at the table and become part of that. So you get a lot of bang for your buck with that. As far as, all the other things, I think we just have to see where we are at the end of the 2 years and decide what's something that can be funded and what can't. So I leave that up to, whatever decisions are made beyond me. But
Right,
my
and-
goal is to grow it and Hope, and I know how to do that at Hope School. So I've done it. I've grown leaders. I've grown strong teacher leaders. I know how to do it. So my goal is to replicate that in all the buildings and grow that capacity.
Good luck.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Thank you, Dana.
Thanks.
Do I have a motion to move,
I
the-
make a motion to table the 2022 Rhode Island Kids Count, the discussion action vote, item number 6. We'll table it till our next meeting.
do I have a second?
Yeah, second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Do I have any announcements tonight?
No.
Do I have a meeting, do I have a
I have
motion?
one announcement I just have to say, and I'm the one that's been moaning all night, so. For the 5 people that are remaining, we thank you for being here. And it is important to say, but I wanted Lori to hear and the school committee to hear. Maura had the opportunity to go to, and Erica can help me with this, to a youth leadership summit at Bryant College that was put on through, it's sponsored through the Rhode Island Department of Transportation through, tell me the organization that's it was a bunch of, a whole group of high schoolers from throughout the state of Rhode Island. Having predominantly to do with making good decisions, talking about impaired driving, talking about, mental health. There was just so much to say, but the biggest piece that I wanted to get out about this is it's not about my kid. It's about the impact that this had on my kid. She came home like a different kid. Just the ideas, the thoughts. There was a speaker there, get the goosebumps when I say this one, Matt Dennison, who was the West Warwick hockey player, who his parents were actually there and spoke. Just very powerful. And it's a powerful message. They've revved these kids up to come back to Situate. And a shout out to our SRO, Richard Parenti, because he helped orchestrate all of this. The biggest piece of this, I want to say Maura said there was probably about maybe 60 or 70 kids there. Of those 60 and 70, the smallest school in this high school in the state, with the exception of Block Island, had the largest contingent of students. 15 students of those 70 or 75 kids were from Situate. So it was an extremely powerful, it was in coordination with,
It's free, so it doesn't need to be sponsored. There was no cost to the
but the
students.
organization that runs it, Colin
it
Judge
CCAP?
and, oh, I asked. Yes.
Rhode Island Association of
School
School Assistant
principals?
Counselors.
Yes, so
Oh.
I think it's actually funded through the Rhode Island Department of Transportation, and but again, and these kids willingly gave up a part of their summer and enjoyed every second of it. So not to belabor that, but it was an amazing experience. And the best part is these kids are all revved up to come back here and put these things back into practice. So kudos to Situate.
I put it in a little thought to see if the students would be comfortable and willing to come and present to the school committee, maybe in September.
And Mrs. I'm just gonna call you Erica because I can't even think of what to call you. Committee person McCormick was kind enough to join the kids that day, and they appreciated you being there. So I thought it was pretty cool.
Okay,
With that being said,
thank you, Colleen. Do
I make a motion to adjourn.
I have a second?
Second,
All those in favor?
Aye. Thank you, everyone who stayed through the heat. Oh, yeah. Here you go. Have you-